Hi guys, it's me, Chazza HD, and welcome to race day for the 7th Grand Prix of 2025. Of course, the first Grand Prix of the European season. We are here at Imola, one of the best racetracks in the world, for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that promises quite a bit, given how mixed up of a grid we do have. Qualifying yesterday was a very exciting one. It was incredibly close throughout the field, many surprises as well, and hopefully that will only keep up as the weekend obviously comes into now. The most important part being the Grand Prix. As you can see, less than 2 hours, just under 2 hours to go until the race begins at Imola. No concerns about weather. It is hot and sunny, beautiful at the Imola track, and cannot wait to see what goes down today. And yeah, really good mixed up grid to where we will get definitely quite a bit of racing today. Even if it's only in the midfield, it's going to happen because it is just that close. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. And I hope we'll have a proper good race today at Imola and continue what's been a pretty good 2025 Formula One season. This race, though, is also very, very important for the Drivers' Championship. Oscar Piastri, of course, leading the championship. If he wins this race, it will be 5 wins in a row for the Australian. His teammate, obviously down in 4th. If he can win this race, desperately has to for his championship bid. Also, Max Verstappen and even George Russell, 2nd and 3rd respectively, if they can win, absolutely have to if they want to be winning this championship. This is a crucial race in determining who will be world champion in 2025. And of course, the start is going to be so important, just like it has been before here at Imola. And we'll see what goes down. But yeah, this is a very important race in the championship, especially given the form that the championship leader Oscar Piastri is in. So yeah, we'll see just what goes down today. Hope you guys are well, by the way. Hope it's beautiful weather wherever you are, and I hope that no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're from, hope you're all having as best a time as possible, given whatever circumstances you are going through. And I hope you can join us today in either watching along the race, or if you can't watch the race because you're busy doing something, then just listen along. That's no problem. I will keep you bang up to date with everything that goes on in this Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Also, I will be joined today by my co-commentator Niblo for the race. Of course, last time he was on was for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which was about a month ago. He will be joining us in about an hour and a half from now to also commentate on this race at Imola. So he'll be coming on soon. And also, quickly, before we get into our usual race build-up, which, of course, if you haven't been here before, we go through really the data from yesterday, the obviously qualifying results, the sector time data, the speed trap data, just to understand why certain teams are quick and why certain teams are not. And also get into some race pace data from Friday, just to understand on heavier fuel who has good pace and who doesn't. And then obviously we'll get into our predictions. But also, as usual, there is a poll running at the top of the live chat, where I've asked you guys the usual question of who will win this Grand Prix today at Imola. Will it be Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, George Russell, or Lando Norris? Who wins the race today at Imola? Let me know over the course of the next, basically, hour and 45 minutes, let's say. And then right before the race, we'll see who you guys have voted for. But yeah, hope you guys are all well, and let's get straight into the build-up, and let's get into what happened yesterday and what our starting grid is for this Grand Prix today. So Oscar Piastri, only just, with a brilliant lap, got pole position by, as you can see, 0.03 of a second. It was incredibly close between Piastri and Verstappen. I think from Piastri's point of view, what was impressive was just how good he was in the middle and final sector, because in the first sector, as I'll show in a moment, Max was absolutely incredible with how quick he was. So to make back up the time and just about still be ahead in the end was a brilliant effort from Piastri, and he thoroughly deserved to be on pole with with what he did. Yes, the McLaren car is still quicker than the Red Bull. I think most people would still agree with that, but in qualifying, it was not a giant gap at all between McLaren and Red Bull. Max in second. I thought Max did a fantastic job to be as close as he was to pole and be on the front row. And absolutely, Verstappen can win today. Whether he will or not, it really does come down to the start. If he gets into the lead on lap 1, I think Max can do it. Last year it was a clear example of how he's able, even if he's not in the fastest car, still able to hang on to the lead. So, yeah, I think Max definitely can win this race today, as opposed to obviously the Miami Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago where he was on pole, where McLaren were, just miles quicker than the Red Bull. So yeah, Verstappen definitely got a better chance today. And then third, George Russell, very good lap, and only basically, a tenth and a half off pole. Mercedes, I think, will be happy with that, given, how far off they were in Miami, especially in the race, for them to only be a tenth and a half away from McLaren in qualifying here at Imola. That's good. Now, what I am looking for from Mercedes is to see whether they can hang on to that battle with, Piastri and Verstappen in the race today. If they can, then that would be really positive for them for this race. Lando Norris, though, fourth on the grid. Not only fourth, 0.3 of a second slower than his teammate. That is a horrible effort from him. We know he can do better than that. He was, up until qualifying, I wouldn't say quicker than Piastri necessarily, but he was very close on lap time with Piastri. It was hundredths of a second separating them, not tenths of a second. So that was awful from Lando, what he did in Q3. And once again, when the pressure, rose to its highest, he failed to deliver. And I know there are some Lando fans out there who actually believe that, McLaren are sabotaging Lando, which is obviously complete bullshit, or that, there's something wrong with Lando's car. It is not, that is not the case. The reason Lando is performing like this is because he doesn't perform well under pressure. In fact, he's one of, I think, the worst drivers I've seen at performing under pressure in the last, say, 10 years. He really is not good under pressure, is Lando. And that's why he ended up in fourth. He should have been, at worst, in third. With Max being as close as he was to Oscar, I would say it's a bit unfair to expect Lando to still have been on the front row, given how close, again, that gap is between Piastri and Verstappen. So, again, third, at the absolute worst, is where he should be, but fourth it is. And there's no guarantee he will finish on the podium, because I think the other teams are closer to them this weekend than it was in Miami. I don't think McLaren have the advantage here that they had in Miami. They are still the quickest, but not by, again, that massive amount it was a couple of weeks ago. But also, it is pretty hard to overtake here. I don't think there is anyone who would really deny that. I mean, look at last year's Grand Prix. Didn't really have that many overtakes, and if you could overtake, it was only if you had a massive pace advantage compared to, the car you were trying to overtake, where you had to be like at least half a second, if not a second, a lap quicker than the car ahead to get the move done. So, again, there is no guarantee today that Lando will actually finish on the podium, when he absolutely needs to be finishing, at worst, in second place. Because if if it finishes the way it is at the moment, if Oscar wins the race and Lando finishes in fourth, Oscar will extend the championship lead over Lando to 29 points, which is over a race win. And at that point, Lando will start to, I think, dramatically fall away. So, yeah, crucial race for Norris today to try and make up for what happened yesterday. And then P5, just about, as you can see, by 1,000th of a second, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. What a lap from Fernando, the man who won this race 20 years ago for Renault in that classic showdown with Michael Schumacher. Still going and still doing superbly. And what a lap it was. P5. Brilliant from Fernando. It was not down to the Aston Martin, necessarily him being, in fifth place. Yes, the Aston Martin was clearly good enough to be in the top 10, as you can see Lance Stroll in 8th place. The Williams was quicker in qualifying. Carlos Sainz actually did his best lap time in Q2 of 1:15.1, which if Sainz had done that in Q3, Carlos would have ended up in P5 and would have ended up a couple tenths of a second quicker than he was in Q3. So, yeah, the Aston Martin, again, doesn't have the pace of the Williams, but Fernando, with the opportunity there to get onto not only the third row, but to get into fifth place, he took that opportunity. So, congratulations to him. What a fantastic lap by him. Carlos Sainz 6th. He had a great qualifying, Carlos. Let's not get it twisted. He did have a great session, even though he really should have finished in fifth place. Given that the Williams was, by the looks of it yesterday, probably a couple tenths of a second quicker than the Aston Martin. 6th place is still a very good result, and he obviously was ahead of Albon, who also I thought was very good yesterday. So, it's not the end of the world. And of course, in the race today, Albon, or not Albon, but, both Williamses really can still make up for not being on the third row of the grid where they probably should be. So, Williams, good qualifying, but I think the race can be even better today. And if they were to finish 5th and 6th, 18 points would be absolutely massive for them. Lance Stroll, 8th. Good effort from him as well. Aston Martin clearly proving that they had a genuinely quick enough car to be in the top 10. The first time that's been the case in feels like quite a while. So, congratulations to Lance and congratulations to Aston Martin for actually having a car going in the right direction for once. And actually yesterday, they were half a second quicker than they were last year at this Grand Prix, which I think is the first time they've been quicker in lap time than they were the year before in quite a few races. So, great from Aston Martin. Hopefully they can keep that up going forward, because we don't want to see them regularly, nowhere near the points. That is not where we want to see them at all. And then completing the top 10, Isaac Hadjar 9th, Pierre Gasly 10th. I think Gasly definitely had more pace in the car. I think he probably could have ended up ahead of Stroll in the Aston Martin. The Alpine definitely has a bit more pace. Probably, a couple tenths of a second more than what was shown. Great effort, though, from Isaac Hadjar. Even though it maybe wasn't as good as he was hoping, 9th place is still a very good result in that car. So, I mean, the Racing Bulls, we know it's not as good as the Williams. I think Racing Bulls maybe a tad disappointed given that Aston Martin were ahead of them, which that's never really happened this season, Aston Martin being ahead of Racing Bulls. But 9th is still a good result, and they can still do a great race result from that position. But very exciting midfield battle is going to happen today between Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Stroll, Hadjar, Gasly. And of course, how can we forget the other midfield team of the Scuderia Ferrari team? An absolute disaster in qualifying yesterday. As you can see, they were about a second away from pole, 11th and 12th with Leclerc and Hamilton. You can't blame the drivers for what happened yesterday. The car genuinely was not quick enough to get into Q3. It wasn't that they were quicker in Q1 or they didn't gain as much time as they really should have in Q3 or in Q2, sorry. They were half a second quicker in Q2 compared to Q1. So they did gain a good amount of time. They just weren't quick enough. They were genuinely slower than Aston Martin, genuinely slower than Williams, and genuinely slower than Racing Bulls and Alpine. Ferrari yesterday were the 8th best team in qualifying. And even worse is this stat that I discovered yesterday and that has been revealed by certain data people on X as well, which is just incredible. Ferrari yesterday were 0.6 of a second slower than they were in qualifying at this Grand Prix last year. Last year, Leclerc did a 1:14.9, when yesterday he did a 15.5. Literally going backwards. That, who does that remind you of? Reminds you of Aston Martin or even Williams a few years ago. Remember Williams went years of literally not being able to match their lap times from 2017? That is the level of bad Ferrari have got to now. They are literally going slower than last year. I don't have any more words for just how bad of a season this has turned into. Again, after pre-season testing, my hopes were not great for this team regarding them maybe winning the championship. But I did not think it would fall apart this quickly to where in race 7, they would be genuinely not quick enough to make the top 10. Just incredible. And, moving forward, does it really matter if they bring upgrades that improve this car? No, it doesn't. This car is just fundamentally a terrible car. If they bring upgrades, then it's basically like putting a plaster on a gunshot wound. It is meaningless, really, at the end of the day. There's not really much else to say about Ferrari, to be honest. They have just made a car that, again, fundamentally is poor. Doesn't have good downforce. There's no real positive things about it. Yes, the straight line speed is good, but you need a lot more than that these days to be quick. You can't just, this is not 10 years ago where you could rely on having a really good power unit to do most of the work for you. That's, this is a different time. You need a lot of aero grip if you want to be, fighting for wins. Just look at McLaren up front. So yeah, I don't think there's much else to say when it comes to Ferrari and the disaster that they are. One thing I will say is I don't think today they are going to be necessarily flying through the midfield pack because I don't think they're quicker. But also, in regards to next week's Grand Prix at Monaco, I think people are going to be surprised with just how bad they're going to be. Remember last year at Monaco, they were the quickest team. This time around in Monaco, next week, I think they're going to be struggling to make the top 10 with both cars. Because McLaren, Red Bull, and Mercedes will all be quicker. And maybe even Williams as well. So that's 4 teams that will probably be quicker than them. So at best, they'll get maybe Leclerc into Q3. And then Hamilton will probably get knocked down Q2. That is literally the level they have dropped to in just a year. Going from, pole and victory at Monaco to a midfield team. And what's even funnier is 2020, of course, is regarded as an absolutely diabolical season for Ferrari, and it was. They were quicker at the race here in 2020, not in terms of lap time, but in terms of position on the grid. They were quicker compared to the rest of the field in that 2020 race weekend compared to this weekend. If you go back and look, what was it? Let me just have a quick look. I'm pretty sure Charles Leclerc ended up in the top 10 in qualifying. And yeah, he did. Leclerc did, he qualified in 7th place. So they're not only are they bad, Ferrari, they're literally worse than 2020. That is the levels they have dropped down to. So, and as Astro said in the chat, and I don't know if he's in the chat yet. If he is, then hello to you. But he said it yesterday. Ferrari have hit rock bottom. Well, actually, hold on. It was I said on commentary Ferrari have hit rock bottom, and then he added only or just yet or something like that. Point is, even though yesterday you would think was rock bottom, it could get worse with this team. It really could, because who trusts them to make this car any better? I don't trust them at all. Wouldn't trust them with anything, really. Anyway, let's go on to the rest of the field. Kimi Antonelli 13th. Awful from him. He should have been P5 on the grid. 5th on the grid was right there for him to take. Would have set him up as well decently for the race, and would have been really good for Mercedes as well. A 3rd and 5th for the Constructors' Championship as well. But yeah, Antonelli really poor in Q2. Bortoletto 14th, good effort from him, really good effort. Getting the Sauber as high as realistically you could get it. Colapinto 15th, of course, didn't do a lap time because he crashed out at the end of Q1 and then didn't obviously do a lap time in Q2. And then it was Liam Lawson, awful from him. Hulkenberg, disappointing from him, 17th. And then Ocon 18th. Behrman 19th, who still, for me, got screwed out of a Q2 appearance yesterday. And then Yuki Tsunoda, 20th, who will be starting from the pit lane because of the accident he had yesterday. And of course, they've replaced loads of parts on that Red Bull. So yeah, Tsunoda starts from the pit lane and hopefully he can have a decent race. A shame that Tsunoda had that crash because the Red Bull car, with how quick it was in qualifying yesterday, Tsunoda, if he was, because if you actually look at the gap that Tsunoda has been behind Verstappen, it's been around half a second, quite a lot. If he was half a second off Max yesterday, he would have ended up P5 on the grid. So there was actually legitimate potential yesterday for Tsunoda to end up in a really good grid position, but threw it away with a really stupid error, taking way too much curve into the entry of the Villeneuve chicane. But we'll see what he can do from 20th. I'll be interested to see, especially in clear air, just how quick he can be compared to that midfield pack, up in the top 10 and just outside of the top 10 with, the two Ferraris and that. We'll see how he can do. But yeah, that's how qualifying is, and the grid is not exactly like what qualifying finished like. Franco Colapinto was given a one-place grid penalty for entering the fast lane before the official restart time was given in Q1. So yeah, Colapinto will start from 16th place. Yeah, and that means Liam Lawson will start 15th. Anyway, let's get into the sector times to understand just why things ended up the way they did. And as you can see, in the first sector, Max was incredible. I think the Red Bull car, we have to say, as we have observed this season, in high-speed corners, the Red Bull car is at its best. I wouldn't say it's necessarily always the best car in the high-speed corners, but it's in its prime, let's say, in high-speed corners, and the first sector is all about that. So, yeah, not really a surprise Red Bull are quick in the first sector, but I think also when you add in Max Verstappen in his prime, in that car. That's what makes the gap as big as it is. A tenth and a half over the next car being Carlos Sainz in the Williams. Very impressive pace from the Williams, because normally the Williams goes better in the slower corners than it does the high-speed corners. But yeah, very impressive pace there from the Williams. Mercedes slightly behind. Mercedes, like McLaren as well, should have been closer to Max, but I think we do have to just say that Max was absolutely on one in that first sector. But as you can see, Piastri losing nearly 0.2 of a second and had to then make back up the time he did to get on pole, and he ended up making up an extra, what was it? It was a quarter of a second he made up in the second and third sector on Verstappen to get pole position. So it was a really great recovery from Piastri to still get pole, because Max, starting the lap, was incredibly fast. So yeah, Piastri, again, was losing a lot of speed in that first sector, but brilliantly made it back up. Alpine's pace pretty good. Aston Martin's decent. And then Ferrari, 7th best team, only barely ahead by half a tenth of the Sauber team. Just incredible. Normally, in high-speed corners, the Ferrari car is at its best and is actually pretty decent. That's what we saw in the early parts of this season. But yesterday, 4.5 tenths away from Red Bull. Not only 4.5 tenths away from Red Bull, 3 tenths slower than Williams in the first sector. I can't explain just how bad that is. It is incredibly bad, is what it is. But yeah, I just don't have words to describe just the poor lap time. And then, yes, Sauber, Racing Bulls. Surprising, Racing Bulls weren't a bit quicker in the first sector. They were very quick in the first sector in practice, but yeah, not very quick yesterday. And then Haas last of all. But Behrman, I think, again, was screwed. And I think Behrman could have done quite a bit better. The middle sector, you got a combination of slow and, say, high to medium speed corners. All types of corners in the middle sector. McLaren, no surprise, the quickest team through this part of the lap by just over half a tenth from Mercedes. Mercedes were really good in the middle sector. Max, though, you can see, quite a bit off in this middle sector. And that is definitely a big reason why Max was not able to get pole, because he was just a bit too far off in the middle sector. If he could have been, say, half a tenth closer, which he probably should have been, then he obviously would have been on pole. So, yeah, just lost a bit too much time in this middle sector. Aston Martin, very impressive for them to be only slightly slower than Red Bull and be in the mix there. Racing Bulls a lot better. Williams, again, surprising that they were a lot quicker in the high-speed corners compared to the slow-speed corners, because, as I said, normally in the slow-speed corners, they've actually been at their best. Ferrari, again, absolutely terrible. 4.5 tenths, again, slower than the quickest team in this part of the lap. Can't explain it. I mean, not only 4.5 tenths slower than McLaren, they were a quarter of a second slower than Aston Martin in the middle sector. Just how is that possible? I don't understand. Alpine, not so great. And then Haas, and then Sauber completing the middle sector. Then the final sector is all about, really, obviously the Variante Alta chicane, but it's all about those final two corners, the two revatsas, where you've got to make sure you get that front end in and don't lock up and run wide. Because if you make even a slight error in those two revatsas, you can lose your qualifying, really. Lando was actually very good in the final sector, the quickest in the final sector, but was way too poor, really, in the first two sectors, to the point where it didn't matter what he did in the final sector. He gave away just way too much time in those first two sectors. Mercedes, once again, very good. Red Bull, as good as I think they could have done. I think it's really, again, the middle sector where that, I think the middle sector is what cost Max pole. Alpine, very good. Williams, good. Ferrari, quarter of a second away from McLaren. Again, not good enough. Racing Bulls, okay. Aston Martin, okay. Then a big drop off to Sauber and Haas. But if we look, going back to the qualifying results, I think overall, I would still say McLaren had the best car, but I don't think it was by a lot. I think maybe a couple tenths at most. The difference between the McLaren and the Red Bull in qualifying should be a bit bigger in this race. We'll see. But yeah, I think a couple tenths of a second is what the advantage McLaren had. But Max was able to make up almost all of that and make it super close in qualifying. Mercedes, I would say, actually, to be honest, I would probably say Mercedes were on the same pace, if not slightly quicker than Red Bull. I think if Max was in the Mercedes, I think Max probably would have ended up on pole, because that Mercedes, I still think fundamentally is a better car than the Red Bull. So those top three teams, very close to each other. Hopefully that remains the case in the race as well. And then a bit of a drop-off to, I think Williams are the quickest of the midfield teams in fourth. Fifth quickest, you'd have to go Aston Martin. Sixth, I would go Alpine. Seventh, Racing Bulls. Eighth, you would have to say Ferrari. And then ninth, Sauber. And 10th, actually, no, 9th, I'm going to go Haas, and then 10th, Sauber, because if Behrman was allowed through in Q2, I think Behrman would have ended up ahead of Bortoletto. So, pecking order-wise, that's how I think it is this weekend. Now, the gaps are not necessarily going to be the same through the field as it was in qualifying. Like I said, McLaren, I think, at most, were probably 0.2 of a second quicker than Mercedes and Red Bull. Might be a slight bit bigger today, we'll have to see, but yeah, that's what I think it was in qualifying and how it should be pretty much in the race. But a couple more things I want to go on to is the top speeds, because of course this is important to look at in regards to, in regards to the Grand Prix today. One mistake I've already seen that I've made is I've accidentally put the same team twice in this top 10. So sorry about that. But Alpine did have the best top speed with Franco Colapinto at 303.2 kilometers an hour. Ferrari only slightly slower than that. So, with Ferrari, you can really see how it's not a top speed issue. It is pure downforce. They have just none of it, really. They are shocking, quite frankly, in that area. And then, sorry for putting Gasly in the Alpine there. That's a mistake that I've made. The team I should have put in this top 10. Who should it have been? Williams. Yeah, I've not put Williams in here. So yeah, sorry about that. That's just an error on my part. Russell in the Mercedes, pretty good top speed. Haas, a lot better top speed from them. So maybe they've sorted their top speed issue, or they were just running a lot less downforce to compensate for it. We'll see going forward. McLaren, interestingly, a bit higher with their top speed than usual. Usually they're 9th or 10th quickest in the speed trap. This speed trap, by the way, the data collected from this speed trap is from the speed trap at the end of the pit straight going into the Tamburello chicane. McLaren, slightly quicker in the speed trap than usual. And I think that is to protect themselves down the straight in case Red Bull or Mercedes get a run on them. That's what I think that is. Also, Red Bull are slightly slower in the speed trap than they usually would be. And I'm wondering if that was purely for qualifying to try and give Max his best chance to get pole. But unfortunately, he did not. So in terms of top speed, Red Bull do not have an advantage over McLaren or Mercedes in that regard. So, McLaren down the straights should be absolutely fine. Unless, of course, Red Bull have or Mercedes have DRS on them. But if they don't, then there shouldn't be an issue in a straight line. Racing Bulls, not great, but that's usually around where they are. And then Sauber, a bit lower down than they usually are. I think bolting on some downforce to try and make them a bit quicker in the middle parts of the lap, but not quite working out for them. And Aston Martin, the slowest team of the speed trap and the only team to clock under 300 kilometers an hour, which is impressive. With where they ended up in qualifying with that slight deficit of 2 to 3 kilometers an hour to certain teams that they have been competing with this weekend. So Aston Martin through the corners genuinely have a very good car, at least for the midfield, not in general. But watch out for the Alpine, the Ferrari, obviously the Mercedes, and the Ferrari powered teams. Obviously you have to watch out for them, and we'll see whether that top speed from McLaren, that extra top speed they have, whether that will help them in the race today, and maybe in the, say, early laps when Piastri is trying to pull away from Verstappen, if Piastri is still, of course, in the lead. But one more thing we're going to go on to, guys, before we get into my race predictions, is the race pace from Friday practice. Now, I don't know who was on what compound, so I don't know that information, unfortunately, but this is the average lap times of the teams, the best lap times on average from the teams' long runs on Friday. McLaren, no surprise, the quickest. Ferrari, though, surprisingly second quickest. If they are legitimately that quick in the race today, then it's going to be fun to watch them come back through the field. But also, it would be maddening if that was their pace in the race today. Because, if they ended up with a decent qualifying, they could have actually utilized that for a good result. But yeah, I don't think they're going to have that type of race pace. Mercedes, decent pace. Williams, good pace. Racing Bulls as well. Watch out for them. Red Bull, not very good on Friday, but Red Bull definitely got better on Saturday compared to Friday. So I think they'll be a bit better going forward. Sauber and Alpine on the same pace. Aston Martin not looking great, but again, Aston Martin also did improve quite a bit compared to Friday. So I think Aston Martin might be a tad better with their race pace today than what they showed on Friday. And then Haas, the slowest team. We'll see race pace-wise who does have the best. Normally McLaren are the kings in that area. And then after that, you've got Mercedes and Red Bull normally on the same pace. And then Ferrari, 4th, 5th, something like that. We'll see how it plays out today. But let me get into, guys, as we've got about an hour and 20 minutes to go until lights out in Italy at the Imola circuit. Let me get on to my final race prediction, which may surprise a couple of you. So Oscar Piastri, I think, will take his 5th win in a row. Not by a massive amount. It won't be as dominant compared to the non-McLarens as it was in Miami. I'm going 8 seconds over Verstappen. But it will be a comfortable enough win for Oscar. And I think he will maintain the lead on the first lap. And I think he will just gradually pull away as the race goes on. Verstappen, I think, will finish in 2nd. Russell, I think will finish in 3rd. And will just about hang on ahead of Lando Norris in 4th, who will be very close to Russell the entire race. And then a big gap to Carlos Sainz, who I think will finish in 5th. Alonso, I think because of just how great he is, will be able to keep one of the Williamses back before the end of the race. So I think Alonso finishes 6th, Albon 7th, Stroll in 8th. Antonelli, I do think, will make some progress and finish in 9th because the Mercedes is obviously quicker than the Williamses, the Aston Martins, the Alpines, and the Racing Bulls and those cars. The issue is, though, that, of course, Antonelli is going to be stuck in a lot of traffic for quite long in this race, which is why I only think he'll finish 9th and won't finish ahead of the Williamses or Aston Martins because he just won't have, he won't be able to break that traffic to actually show the real pace that is there in that car. But if he can break the traffic for long enough, then really Antonelli should finish in 5th place because that Mercedes is absolutely quick enough to finish there. And then in P10, I think will be Pierre Gasly. As you can see with the gaps I've gone with, I think he'll be close with Alonso and Albon and very close for the final 3 points paying positions with Stroll, Antonelli and Gasly. And I think Leclerc and Hamilton will be close in there as well. But yes, I do not think Ferrari will score a point today. I think they will finish with both cars outside the top 10. Chances of that happening are still a bit slim, but I just don't think they have a genuinely quick enough car. I think that car is not really going to be much quicker than what we saw yesterday. And actually, Ferrari, to an extent, are a bit lucky that Tsunoda crashed in qualifying and that Antonelli had as poor a qualifying as he did. Because if Tsunoda and Antonelli had done their best qualifying efforts, Ferrari would have probably ended up 13th and 14th. So remember that. That's just how bad Ferrari were yesterday, that they were actually fortunate with, one of the Mercedes and one of the Red Bull cars being as low down and as bad as they were. So, yeah, I am not high with my hopes in regards to Ferrari. But that's my race prediction. I think Piastri will get his 5th win in a row, and we'll see if he can get it. Like I said, this is a crucial race in the championship. If Max Verstappen can win, this really could be the turning point in his championship. Remember, Max is 32 points behind Piastri. So if he can win today and Piastri finishes 2nd, he'll cut the gap down to about, 25 points, which keeps it at a decent level if Red Bull do eventually improve that car to the point where it's as quick, if not quicker, than the McLaren. But there you go, guys. That is my race prediction. Let me know your prediction in the live chat, as I'm just going to get the timer back on screen. Just give me a second, guys, as we've got just over an hour and 15 minutes to go until the race is underway. There you go, hour and 17 minutes to go. And for the next, say, 30 to 40 minutes, we are going to come to you guys in the chat to ask what you guys have to say in regards to, in regards to the, the race and how you think things are going to play out. As Nib is saying, I don't think this data is correct. What data are you on about? If you're talking about speed trap data, then yeah, I did fuck that up slightly. And what you just sent me, that was only from the drivers' fastest laps. The speed trap data that I showed, that's from all of qualifying. So, for example, Colapinto, when he did that top speed, that might not have necessarily been on his best lap. So yeah, that's why I got my I get the speed trap and sector time data I get from the FIA website. So yeah. Anyway, one more thing I do need to actually get into before I read out any comments of yours. And by the way, make sure to smash a like button. We're on 14 likes. Let's try and get up to, say, 30 plus likes if we can in the next half an hour. That'd be great if we could. Obviously, hit the like button does help the channel grow, helps in the algorithm, and helps show me that you guys actually enjoy this content. So if you do, smash a like button. Yeah, I just want to read out quickly what Pirelli have said is the best race strategy for the race today. So there are 3 options. 2 of them are a one-stop race, which I am surprised by, because remember, the tyre compounds this weekend are the 3 softest that Pirelli have. The C6, the C5, and the C4. Incredibly, soft tyres they brought this weekend. But according to Pirelli, the most likely strategies is either start on the medium compound tyre, pit between lap 19 and 25, and then finish the race on a set of hard tyres. That's a pretty basic one-stop strategy. And that is the one that, if you're going to do a one-stop race, that's what you'd be aiming for, is to pit between, say, I wouldn't say lap 19, I'd say probably more like between lap, say, 25 to lap, say, 32, if you can, and then finish the race on a set of hard tyres. I think pitting around lap 20 would be a bit early for a one-stop strategy, personally. But, I mean, the hard tyres being the C4 compound, it's going to last a bit, but I'm not sure if it's going to last 40 laps. So, yeah, I think if anyone goes for a one-stop strategy, I think they'll be pitting a bit later than lap 20. More like like I said, anywhere between 25 and 32, I think, for a one-stopper. Then there is a two-stop option, though. The two-stop option is start on the medium, pit between lap 12 and 18, go on to a set of hard tyres, pit again between lap 34 and 40, and then finish the race on another set of hard tyres. There is also a second option if you want to do a one-stop strategy, which is start on the hard compound tyre, which I think we will get a couple people doing, namely Yuki Tsunoda. I think he will definitely do this. Start on the hard tyre, pit between lap 38 and 44, and then finish the race on a set of mediums. I think that's definitely a strategy we will see. And yeah, if you start on the hard compound tyre, you should be pitting between, like Pirelli said, 38 and 44, maybe between laps 35 and 40, even. Yeah, we'll see who decides to go for that strategy and whether or when they will pit with that strategy. So even though Pirelli have brought, such soft compounds, a one-stop strategy is still possible. And why is that? Well, two reasons. One, this circuit does not wear out tyres as much as people think it does. It does wear them out a bit, but not massively. But secondly, the pit lane loss here at Imola is quite a lot. If you pit here at Imola, you lose about, I think, 26 or 27 seconds. It's quite a bit more you lose in the pit lane compared to, say, Barcelona, where you lose like 21, 22 seconds. Or, obviously, Canada, you only lose like 17 seconds, which is why in Canada, it's good to do, at least a couple stops, because you don't lose anywhere near as much time pitting as you do at other tracks. So yeah, that's what dissuades people from doing an aggressive or an extra stop type of strategy, because of the pit lane loss. That the same thing happens at Silverstone. The reason at Silverstone we normally get only one-stop races is because the pit lane loss at Silverstone is about half a minute. And it's not worth pitting an extra time, because unless you have a gigantic tyre delta difference, you're not going to make the difference up on your rivals. So, yeah, that is why a one-stop race is still massively preferable. So, yeah, we'll see what happens in the Grand Prix today, but I think we will get most people trying for a one-stop race. Maybe a few people will do a two-stop, especially if their tyres are really hurting. Maybe Ferrari will split strategy and put, say, Leclerc on a two-stop and Hamilton on a one-stop. We'll see. But, yeah, I think most people will go for a one-stop race today. But, yeah, like I said, for the next, say, 30, 40 minutes, we're going to go through your comments in the chat. Before I do, though, just want to quickly have a drink, because of course it is quite hot in my part of the UK, and I just want to make sure I'm keeping my throat in good condition, because I know yesterday it was not great. So let me just quickly have a sip of water. So there you go. Hopefully that's good for a bit. Also, one thing I just want to announce quickly is my content plan for the next week. So tomorrow there will be a podcast, probably in the afternoon, uploaded to the channel where I will be obviously reviewing this Grand Prix, like I do the day after a Grand Prix. So that'll be coming out tomorrow. And then for the Monaco Grand Prix, I will only be doing a qualifying watch along. And the reason that is because the race, I've looked at the forecast for Monaco, it's going to be a dry weekend. So, yeah, there is no chance I'm doing a race watch along for Monaco, because even with this new regulation of mandating a 2-stop race at Monaco, it's not going to make a difference. You can't overtake at Monaco. These cars are too big. We know the story. So, yeah, I will only be doing a qualifying watch along next weekend. Then, of course, I will do a podcast the day after the Monaco Grand Prix reviewing the events of the race. So, yeah, that'll still happen. And also, I may as well just announce this as well, because it's obviously the week after the Monaco Grand Prix. As we are with this race, this is the beginning of a triple header. A week after the Monaco Grand Prix is the Spanish Grand Prix, and same for the Spanish Grand Prix, I will only be doing a qualifying watch along. But if rain is forecast for race day at the Spanish Grand Prix, then I will do a race watch along. But if not, then it will only be for that weekend a qualifying watch along. But like I said, there will still be the post-race day after podcast for that Grand Prix. So yeah, just want to announce my content plan for this next 2 weeks. So still obviously covering with some streams, the next couple Grand Prix, and obviously the podcast will still be there consistently. So make sure to come along to all that content and join me for all of that when it happens. Cannot wait for qualifying in Monaco next week. That is going to be something special. Anyway, hello to all of you. Let's go through your comments. Emmanuel Gosso says, better to be here than listening to the rubbish from Sky Sports F1 or F1 TV. Thanks for that. Astra says, my bold fun prediction, Oscar wins over Russell with Sainz managing to get a podium. And then Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, Antonelli, Gasly, Tsunoda, Behrman for the rest of the top 10. Got feeling, says Astro, that Norris and Verstappen will collide. Max will try to bully him and Lando will this time not back down. I'd be surprised if Max and Lando are on the same piece of racetrack, to be honest. I mean, Lando will have to get past Russell pretty quickly, I think, for that to happen, which is possible. Again, McLaren have got a quicker car, but it's whether, can Lando deliver that pace, and can Lando overtake, Russell on track. That's what it's down to. Jesse says Aston Martin on the medium was crazy, faster than others on soft. Yeah, that was something out of nowhere. And obviously George Russell in Q3, he did that strategy as well, and he ended up getting third. The reason they did that was because the soft tyre, the C6 compound, was just dying in the final sector. It didn't have any life left in it. So, yeah. So that's why, certain teams went for the medium, because it hung on for the whole lap. And Jesse also asking, do you think anyone would use the soft or just medium to hard? No one's going to use the soft tyre today. Absolutely nobody. If the tyres were wearing out enough to where we could get a 2 or even 3 stop race, then I think, yeah, possibly you would get the soft tyre being used, say, for the start. But again, with the pit lane loss and the tyres don't wear out as much here as other circuits, I don't see the soft tyre being used. Maybe if we get a late safety car, in the last 10 laps or so, you'll get someone on a soft compound to try and, go for it and try and gain a couple positions. But yeah, I don't see the soft compound tyre being used at all, because I mean, in qualifying it dies after one lap, and in the race I don't think it's gonna probably be that good for any more than 5 laps. Team Aura, says Nib, in regards to Ferrari. Hello to Brabham, by the way. Good to see you. Bob Atherton, what do you think of the Oliver Oakes situation? Now, people don't know, Oliver Oakes was the team principal of Alpine a couple of weeks ago, but he no longer is the team boss of you know of Alpine, and apparently has fled to Dubai to evade capture by the authorities. Apparently, I don't know if Oliver Oakes was at the high-tech Formula 2 team before Alpine, because I obviously haven't kept track of Oliver Oakes' career. Never heard of the guy until he took over the Alpine team. But his brother, I think, runs, or at this point maybe used to run, the high-tech team. But then his brother was arrested for some sort of, was it money laundering? I think it was. But the thing is the high-tech team. So obviously Russia, we know they invaded Ukraine. What was it, like 3 years ago now? The Mazepins, obviously, not Nikita Mazepin, he's the driver, but Dmitry, his father, is a Russian oligarch, and obviously they were a sponsor of the Haas team. That quickly ended after the invasion began. But also, I think Dmitry Mazepin, or the Mazepin family, had ownership or a lot of shares in the high-tech team. But then obviously once the invasion happened, obviously everything, all Russian assets were being seized, and everything Russian was being, banned, or um you know or they were being sanctioned, everywhere, rightly so. So apparently there's some sort of corruption, or I don't know if it's money laundering or whatever going on, or has been going on at high tech, which Oliver Oakes' brother has been linked to and apparently arrested for. Now, Oliver Oakes fleeing to Dubai is not exactly the sign of an innocent man. So tells me that Oliver Oakes is probably guilty of something to do with that situation. But again, I don't know what that would be. So, I'm not going to allege anything, but it's not the sign of an innocent person, is it? If you flee to a country where you can't be extradited. I think that's the case. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. It's a mental situation is what it is. So hopefully there is a resolution to it, a positive resolution to it, but I'll be honest, I don't truly know who's in the wrong and who's in the right, because it's just quite a crazy situation. Bravomor says the problem with everyone assuming other teams are going to outdevelop McLaren is that McLaren have been the best at developing a car through a season for the last few years. Yeah, the last couple of years, McLaren, you'd have to say, have been the best out of certainly the front running teams at developing the car. And yeah, there is no guarantee that Red Bull, Mercedes, or Ferrari will outdevelop them. One thing that makes it harder, though, is because, of course, McLaren won the championship last year. They have the least amount of wind tunnel time this year to develop their car. So that makes it harder. Obviously, Red Bull finished third last year. So they've got the third least amount of wind tunnel development time. And they are currently third in the championship. So would have still the third least amount of development time in the second half of the year. So, yeah, there's no guarantee, I would say, McLaren will be outdeveloped, but it's not impossible. Red Bull, we know, can develop well. Ferrari, I don't trust in a million years. Mercedes, it depends really on the correlation of their wind tunnel. That's been the issue in these last 3 or 4 years, is their wind tunnel, which Aston Martin were using before this year, where Aston Martin are now using their own wind tunnel because their wind tunnel they've been building for years has finally been built and is now operational. Yeah, Aston Martin before then, though, were using the Mercedes, I think, wind tunnel, or whatever wind tunnel it was that Mercedes were also using. I think the Toyota one, maybe, and it, yeah, wasn't working in terms of correlation from wind tunnel to circuit. So that's really the main issue with Mercedes. It's not that Mercedes don't know what's wrong with their car. It's that they, upgrades they bring doesn't necessarily make their car better at times. I mean, fundamentally, this year's car is better than last year's car. Last year's car was an absolute mess, and they still was able to win. What was it, like 4 races with it? So they turned it into some sort of positive, I guess. But yeah, last year's car fundamentally was a way worse than this year's car. But of course, last year's car, they did around this time of year, or just after this time of year, it was for the Canadian Grand Prix, wasn't it? They brought a big front wing upgrade and it transformed their season. That's what Mercedes need now. If they get an upgrade that transforms their season, then George Russell should start winning races on a semi-regular basis. As looks like, I'm watching the Sky F1 coverage, looks like there's an issue with the Williams car of Alexander Albon, because the engineers are blocking the front of the garage and there's a lot of work going on. So it appears Albon may have an issue, which is not great because Williams have got both cars in the top 7 and need the points. Let me see online if there's any news. And no, can't see anything at the moment. Turbo Power, hello Cheza, how are you doing? You think it'll be an exciting race? It'll be a decent one. I'm not sure it'll be like a proper great, really exciting race because it is hard to overtake here. But it should be very competitive, especially in the midfield. I think the midfield is where it's going to be at today. I think at the front, it's going to be decided really by what happens at the start. But in the midfield, I think that's where it's going to go down today. And thankfully, the midfield is from 5th place down, so there's a lot more, say, midfield runners than usual. Brabham says there's something about Russell that just pisses me off and have nothing to justify it with. No, I see what you mean. I mean, we went through, didn't we, that whole controversy at the end of last year with Verstappen, and some of the comments that Russell made, which I didn't buy for a second. And yeah, Russell, I've always loved Russell as a driver. I've always been a big fan of his. Always hyped him more than, say, Lando Norris. I've always thought of George Russell as Lewis Hamilton's successor in terms of the next great British driver. I've always thought of him as that more so than Lando Norris. I've kept track of him since the end of 2016 because I always known that this guy was going to be something special. So yeah, on track, I think he's great, but off track, there are things about him that, yeah, I don't like. But all that matters is on track at the end of sorry, at the end of the day. um Tango, does the race start in an hour and 5 minutes? Well, that comment was probably a bit ago, because 54 minutes we've got now until the race, and my co-commentator for today, Niblo, should be coming on in about 25 minutes from now. Bolton Job FC says we need a tyre war back desperately. That way you won't have soft tyres that won't last a single quali lap and hard tyres that will last the entire race. I don't think we're going to get a tyre war again, because it will drive costs through the roof, and I don't think it's really worth it at this point. Pirelli, though, let me just have a look, because when they signed their last contract to be Formula One's tyre supplier, I think it was rumored that the contract they signed a couple years ago would be their last. And let me just have a look. So, yeah, Pirelli's contract as Formula One's exclusive tyre supplier is set to expire in 2027, with an option to extend it into 2028. But there's this article from October 2023 where it says Pirelli is to be awarded Formula One's next tyre contract, but it is likely to be the last for the Italian company. Bridgestone, as you know, guys, that's a quite hard word for me to say with my lisp. They look like they might be coming back in, but also there are other tyre suppliers out there as well. So, we may only have 2 to 3 more years of Pirelli, and then we might have a new tyre supplier. Dane says it seems Adrian Newey upgrades Aston Martin works. I don't think Adrian Newey has done anything towards this year's car. I think he's only concentrating on next year's car, so I don't think you can give Adrian any credit for that. Bolger FC, Chazza, do you like darts? And if so, who is your favourite players? I like darts in terms of the atmosphere and the I can watch it, but I don't really care for it enough to where I have a favourite player or anything. I watch it more. I watch it, maybe very occasionally for the atmosphere. That's really the only reason for me to watch darts, to be honest. Right. Let's see if I can find some other comments here. And actually, one thing I will do probably in about 10 minutes is I will go through the teams and just give my thoughts as to maybe strategically what certain teams could do to, improve their race result. Because I think there are certain teams that could maybe try something different in this race today. But let me scroll up a bit to see if there's any comments I've missed. And make sure as well, if you haven't already, to smash that like button. Let's try and get up to 30 likes if we can. We're on 22 at the minute. Astra says Russell has gone under the radar, but it's been extremely impressive so far this year. Keeps getting podiums, 4 of them in 6 races so far. Yeah, Russell has still, he's been fantastic this season. And yesterday was just another example of why he is, just such an elite driver. Russell, for me, is one of the best drivers on the grid. I would say, at worst, he is the 3rd best. at worst on the grid. But right now, you'd probably maybe even say at worst the second best behind Verstappen. He is so consistently great in that car. And yeah, has been really brilliant this year. It is a shame that Mercedes, whilst it's good, it isn't quite race winnable good, because if it was, I think Russell would already have probably 2 or 3 wins under his belt, because he is performing at a high level. He just needs his team to help him out. KH says, I think Ferrari needs a new strategy. One thing I have seen online is some people saying, oh, Ferrari need to sack Frederick Vasseur and sack this guy, sack that guy. I would not be doing that. I mean, maybe yeah, on the technical team, maybe there's a couple people you can maybe get rid of or replace. But I don't think that Fred should be sacked for for what's happened this year, because you have a new era coming up in 2026, obviously just around the corner. Let's give it some time before we even talk about the possibility of Fred being sacked. I think up until the end of last year, Fred has done a fantastic job at Ferrari. 2023, you can't really blame him for, because the car was designed under the old guy before him. 2024 was his first proper season in terms of the car being being designed by people under his influence, and it was a good car. The only issue was that they fucked up the development of it during the month of June going into July. If that didn't happen, I think Ferrari would have come away with at least the Constructors' Championship. And yeah, that's all that really cost them on that end. Yeah, this year's been bad. It's been very disappointing, but let's give him till next year. If next year Ferrari are nowhere and are awful, then yeah, get rid of him. But let's give him until next year to see where Ferrari are at. Because, it's not all about this year. There is, there's every chance that Ferrari next year could be championship material and actually win a championship. So, yeah, let's wait. Sack the Ferrari strategists. They've already sacked the Ferrari strategist a couple years ago, and they've actually been better in that area since then. So that's not the issue. The issue is the technical team, the people that actually build and design the car. That's what the issue is at the moment. What I don't get is why Ferrari had to be so radical with their design with this year's car, when they really should have just built upon what they had last year, which was already good. It just needed to be a bit better. But they decided to, go different directions with it. And as Astro asks, Piastri, Chaza, in regards to, is Piastri what, the closest to Max? No, I like Oscar, but Oscar is not as good in my view as Russell or Leclerc. I need I need to wait a bit before I say that. I think Piastri at the moment, I mean, he's better than Lando Norris. I think that is clear to say. He's better than Lewis Hamilton right now. Lewis obviously is, not in his prime anymore, but he is better than Lewis Hamilton. He's quicker, and it has enough skill in the race to match up, I think, to to Hamilton at the minute. Of course, all time Lewis is miles better than Oscar Piastri, but we're talking right now. So yeah, I'd say Piastri's better than Norris, better than Hamilton, better than Antonelli, but obviously better than Sonoda. But I don't think I could put Piastri ahead of Verstappen, Russell, or Leclerc. I need to see a bit more from Oscar. And you have to remember that, Oscar, yeah, he's leading the championship, but Leclerc and Russell have never had for a full season, which Oscar is likely to have this season, but they've never had for a full season the fastest car on the grid, like Oscar pretty much has at the minute. So let's not forget that. I mean, yeah, Leclerc for a few races in 2022 had the fastest car. Russell never really has had the fastest car except for the very odd weekend. So that really does factor into me comparing Piastri to Russell and Leclerc. But yeah, Oscar definitely would be in my top 5 on the grid right now. Probably, if I was to say, I'd probably say 4th at best is where I would have Oscar in my current ranking list. I think what would be more interesting to decipher is where would we all rank Lando Norris at the moment, because I don't think it would be very high. Probably back end of the top 10, I think, is where he would be at the moment. Definitely behind Max, Russell, Leclerc, Piastri, Alonso, Hamilton. I would still say I think is better. The only thing that Hamilton lacks is the pace that Lando has in qualifying. But I think in terms of skill in the race, I think Lewis is still clearly superior to Lando. And well, so based on this season, I'd say Antonelli's been better this season. So yeah, Lando, you'd probably put in maybe 7th or 8th best on the grid based on this season so far. Bravum says Piastri is less accident prone than Russell. Absolutely. But that is, it's part of what makes a driver great. But I think Russell, in terms of pace and performance, race performances, if you look at these last 2 to 3 years, I think Russell is still for me better than Piastri. Nib saying, bro said Lee Clark. Astro gives his best drivers list: Piastri, Hamilton, Alonso, Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, maybe Antonelli, but bit early to tell there. Or of course, some have better cars than others. As Nib says with Norris, he's much lower than 7th or 8th. Well, again, so what? Max, Leclerc, Russell, Piastri, Alonso, Hamilton. That's 6 drivers ahead of him. Antonelli, that's 7. Albon, I'd put ahead of him based on this season. So that's 8. So yeah, I think at best I'd put Lando probably 9th, 10th in my in my current rankings for the grid based on purely this season. That is, by the way, as we're just seeing some cars coming out of the pit lane, as of course the cars need to be on the grid in about 10 minutes, as we've got 40 minutes to go until this Grand Prix is underway. Astro asking, Sainz and Albon versus Norris, Chazza. Albon, again, so far this season, I'd say Albon has been better than Norris, but Sainz, I can't say that because I don't think Carlos has been that great. He's getting better, Carlos. As good news, by the way, it looks like Alex Albon is in his Williams, so whatever issue he had looks like it's been fixed. When Carlos is at his best, maybe, yeah, you could say he is better than Lando. But if you're looking at this season, I don't think you could say that Sainz has been better than Lando because Sainz most of the time has been outperformed by Albon, which is not the potential I think that Carlos Sainz has. So, yeah. But, I mean, it's debatable. If you want to look at these last, say, couple years and compare Norris and Sainz, I can see why maybe certain people would say Carlos is better, but I think you could easily make an argument that Lando has been better. So I think with Sainz, debatable. Albon, I will say that, yeah, this season Albon has been better than Lando. I don't think that's really up for debate, to be honest. I mean, Albon's only 11 points behind Lewis Hamilton in the championship. So, if you were to do a driver rankings based on purely this season, I think Albon you would probably have to put in your top 5, behind the, say, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc. Probably it would be the only drivers you could put ahead of him. And maybe not even Leclerc. Maybe you'd put him ahead of Leclerc. But yeah, based on purely this season, I think Albon has been one of the top 5 best on the grid this season. And absolutely, so far, has raised his stock quite a bit. But let's see if he keeps it up. I thought he had a good qualifying yesterday. Even though out-qualified by Sainz, he was right in there. Right behind Carlos, right really where he needed to be, and he's set himself up for a good race today as Alex. And who knows, Alex may be very close to Lewis Hamilton in the championship by the end of this Grand Prix today. Anyway, before we bring Nib on, and also I will post a link of the stream out in a moment, let me just quickly go through the teams and just do a quick roundup of how they need to do today. So McLaren, in terms of winning the race today, it all comes down to the start. If Piastri maintains the lead on the exit at turn 3 on the first lap, then Oscar will win the race because that McLaren is still clearly quicker than the Red Bull, especially in race conditions. So that's what Piastri needs to do. Just maintain the lead, and then he should be able to, I wouldn't say run away, but comfortably pull away and win the race at a decent margin over the others. For Lando Norris, if it is to be a one-stop race today, might be worth running a bit longer into the race before he makes his only stop, and maybe running a bit longer than, say, Russell and Verstappen, because on fresh tyres, a bit fresher tyres, that might give Lando enough of an advantage to maybe get an overtake done on Russell or Verstappen. So they've got to do something, unless Lando can get the moves done on track, they've got to do something with his strategy to try and get him into second place. A 1-2 is possible for McLaren, but it really would take something, I wouldn't say special necessarily strategically, but they're going to have to do something really good on his strategy to get him into the position he needs to be in. But McLaren, definitely the favourites for victory. For Max Verstappen, he must get into the lead at turn 1. If he doesn't, he won't win today. Second is all he'll get if he does not get into the lead at the first corner. If he does, though, get into the lead, he can do kind of what he did at Suzuka and control this race. Not easy to overtake here. Neither is it easy to follow another car. So if Max can get into the lead, absolutely he can control this race. And then if it is a one-stop race, just needs to make sure he covers off what McLaren do, whether that's pitting on the same lap, pitting a lap later if Oscar is, say, a couple seconds behind. That's all they would then need to do to hang on possibly then for the victory. But it all comes down to that first corner, which is why I cannot wait to see what happens between Piastri and Verstappen, because who wins comes down to the first corner. As sad as I am to say that, because you don't really want that to happen. You want the race to be decided by stuff that happens later in the race. Because of the difficulty of overtaking and the pace difference of those two cars, it is going to come down to the first corner today. So yeah, that's all it's about. For Yuki Tsunoda, I would like to see him on an alternate strategy from the pit lane today. Start on the hard compound tyres, run him as long into the race as possible, and let's see what that Red Bull is capable of. He could score points if the others in the midfield pit early enough. So watch out for him. He could spring a surprise from the pit lane. Ferrari 11th and 12th. I think the only thing Ferrari can do really is split their strategy from where they are. That's personally what I would do. Put Lewis Hamilton, say, on the hard tyre, and then with Leclerc, put him on a two-stop strategy, and let's just see where they can get to. Because if they just copy what everyone else does, they won't get very far. They need to do something different to get themselves up the grid. 11th and 12th, they cannot remain in this Grand Prix. So that's what I would do. I would start Leclerc on the medium, start Antonelli on the hard. Hamilton on the hard. Take Hamilton until, say, lap 35 or 40 before he eventually pits. With Leclerc, pit him, say, on lap 15 for a set of hard tyres, and then pit him again, say, around lap 35 to 40 for his second pit stop, and just try something, because there's nothing to lose today, and they've got to do something if they want to get into the top 10 and recover what's been a disaster of a weekend. Mercedes, for George Russell, his race really is just holding off Lando Norris for third. If he can make a position up on the first lap, that would be great. But I think that's what his race is going to be today, is trying to keep Lando Norris behind. If they can get a strategy for him that enables him to do that, then great. But that's what the race is today. If we can keep Lando a couple seconds behind him, then Russell, if he pits, say, a lap later, can maybe keep ahead of Lando. But if Lando is right behind Russell when the first and only pit window comes up, and Lando pits first, then realistically, unless Lando's going to have loads of traffic, Lando is going to get past. Because the McLaren is quicker, let's be clear. The McLaren is the quicker car. Mercedes need to try something to keep their man ahead somehow. And obviously George Russell will do his best on circuit. For Antonelli, I think with Antonelli, the best thing to do is start on the medium and just run him a bit longer into the race before making his final pit stop. That's the only thing I think realistically they can do. The Mercedes, even though it's out of position in 13th, compared to Ferrari, they have a lot more pace, quite a bit more pace than Ferrari, probably half a second more pace. So they can actually make their way through without having to go for a wildly different strategy necessarily. So yeah, we'll see what Antonelli does, but I think maybe run a few laps longer to try and get him some clean air might be useful. For Aston Martin, obviously they used the medium tyres yesterday brilliantly to their disposal, and I think they'll be using them quite a bit today. I can see them running quite long on those tyres. They do tend to run quite long on their tyres in general. So yeah, I think you'll see Aston Martin going decently long into the race. They are, though, slower than Williams. So if they can try and keep ahead of the Williams, great, but the Williams are going to be right on their tail the whole Grand Prix. Alpine, of course, I've got a car in the top 10 with Pierre Gasly. Gasly really should be a position or two higher on the grid than he is. So I wonder if Gasly can make up for that in the race today. Haas are at the back of the grid. There's nothing really they can do. Even though they've got good race pace normally, I think they're just too far away to do anything about it. Racing Bulls have got Isaac Hadjar in the top 10 in P9. Watch out for Hadjar. He's been great all weekend. And Racing Bulls, as a team, really do need a couple points from this race to get them a bit nearer the other teams in the championship. So watch out for Hadjar. Again, having a great weekend in 9th and hopefully has a good race. The quickest midfield team, though, in my view, in clear air, Williams, 6th and 7th on the grid. And as long as nothing major goes wrong for them, really should be finishing 5th and 6th in this race today, unless Antonelli or the Ferraris have just major pace compared to them in the race today. But I personally don't think they will. So 5th and 6th is what is on offer. If they can get that, what a result that would be. But even if they would have finished where they're starting, that would still be a good enough result. It really comes down to how well can Fernando Alonso defend his position. If the Williams has enough pace, then Alonso won't be able to do anything about it. But if it's a bit close on pace, then Alonso, we know, can keep a car behind. Of course, 20 years ago, famously, kept Michael Schumacher behind, even though Michael was like a second lap quicker than him. And then Sauber, they've got a car up in 14th. Good effort from Bortoletto, but Sauber just don't have the pace to finish in the points. And a reminder, before I bring Nib on, here is my prediction for the race. Oscar Piastri, I think, will win. Max Verstappen 2nd, Russell 3rd, Norris 4th, Sainz 5th, Alonso 6th, Albon 7th, Stroll 8th, Antonelli 9th, and Pierre Gasly will finish, I think, in P10. But there you go. And yeah, a couple more things I'm going to do before I bring Nib on. Just get this countdown back on the screen. Also, I'm going to post the stream link out one more time. And then I'll bring Nib on probably in a couple minutes. So, yeah. Let me just wait till the next minute ticks over. And then we'll put the countdown back on the screen. As all the cars now are on the grid. As we are, just under half an hour away from getting underway. As we're looking at, I think, Verstappen coming into his pits, but I think that was a few minutes ago. Anyway, just waiting. There you go. So 27 minutes to go until the race is underway. And let me just sorry, I just saw something on X. Let me just post the stream link out and then I'll bring Nib on. And I'll just quickly do this now. So come join us here to watch along the race from Imola. And there you go. So hopefully we'll get some more jumping on as well. If you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. Let's try and get up to, say, 50 likes if we can by the time the race gets underway in 25 minutes. As well, if you haven't, make sure to vote in the poll that's running in the chat and let me know, who do you think will win the race today? Will it be Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, George Russell, or Lando Norris? Out of those four, who do you think is most likely to win? You've got another probably 20 minutes to decide if you haven't already. So, anyway. Let me just adjust a couple things and hop on to Discord. Right, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, all clear. How are you?
I am pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Really looking forward to this race after qualifying was so good yesterday. Proper qualifying session, and hopefully a better than expected race than we normally get here. But I know you're obviously incredibly happy with the man on pole and obviously the way it ended yesterday. Just what did you think of Oscar's of his pole lap. But like I showed earlier, he was nearly 2/10 down after I think the first sector, and it was quite a remarkable effort, I would say. The difference he made back up in the rest of the lap after Max had such a strong first sector, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was pretty pumped after Oscar took pole yesterday. It's safe to say, especially because Oscar one lap pace hadn't been too great most of the weekend. Um, in the earlier sessions of qualifying, um, he wasn't right on it, but recently he's just been able to deliver in Q3, and he was absolutely able to deliver it yesterday. I really thought that the traffic into the penultimate corner where there was freaking 4 cars,
Yeah.
um, I thought that was gonna cost him pole, but it nearly did through the first Ravazza. He lost quite a bit of time, maybe half a tenth, but thankfully he still had a half a tenth margin to get himself pole over Max.
Yeah, I remember on the stream seeing those 4 cars going down to Ravazza, and I thought, yeah, someone here is going to block him. But they all did remarkably well to get out of his
They
way, and
did.
it somehow didn't cost him, and he just about by 0.034 of a second took pole. In contrast, though, his teammate Lando Norris put in an absolute stinker of a performance. I know. What is it? You sent me earlier certain people's comments online thinking that there's no way this could be. It must be sabotage, but it is simply, isn't it? It's down to Lando being probably one of the worst drivers we've seen in recent history under pressure. He could not handle the pressure of fighting closely for pole with Oscar and Max, and that's in the end why he delivers such a poor lap. He was 3/10 of a second off of Oscar, which is a really bad effort, especially when you consider how short of a circuit Imola is. 3/10 off your teammate is a lot of time. So yeah, with Lando's lap, how bad was it? Was it the worst of his season, or do you think there's been worse?
Oh, no, the last run in Q3 was absolutely his worst. He was 6 tenths off Oscar. 6 tenths? His final lap in Q3. It was an absolute disaster. Yes, he did have a little bit of gravel um, through Tamburello chicane, but that didn't lose him all of that time. I think he had a moment through Acque Minerale, um, and then another moment at the Ravazzas, didn't he? So, yeah, just an absolute honking qualifying session, and it's putting in a putting it on pole, at least on the front row, is so crucial here. Whereas you talked about, it's so hard to overtake, and putting it fourth when the McLarens don't have a great straight line speed is certainly going to make things pretty challenging for him today.
Well, yeah, I remember. I think was it late in last year's Grand Prix, McLaren were trying to overtake, and yeah, they didn't have a great straight line speed. I mean, looking at the speed traps from qualifying, it doesn't look that bad for McLaren, but yeah, it's gonna take either the McLaren is gonna have to be as quick as it was in Miami compared to the rest of the field, or Lando is gonna have to produce like the best performance of his career to finish even second. Never mind win the race. He has put himself in a really tricky position in fourth, and if he finishes fourth and Oscar wins, he'll be 29 points behind, and there's a very real chance that by the end of this triple header, he'll be too far away. Um, going forward for the rest of the season. But yeah, it was like you said, that final lap wasn't even his quickest lap. That final lap, like you said, it was 6/10 of a second off. It was such a poor effort, and again, it is not because McLaren are doing anything funky with his car. It's because Lando cannot deliver under pressure, and we are seeing that pretty much every weekend. ever since that first Grand Prix in Melbourne, where except for the, that spin he had, obviously Oscar had as well, he pretty much delivered in Melbourne. But since then, I think every weekend has failed at some point to deliver under, under the pressure. So yeah, it's just a horrible run of form he's on, and we'll see what happens in this race today. If he can get ahead of Russell at the first corner, then maybe he could complete a McLaren 1-2 today. But yeah, I would be quite surprised if McLaren finish first and second, unless, like I said, unless they got the pace of last Grand Prix in Miami. But of course, we must talk about Ferrari, as you call them, Team Aura. Just how would you describe just how bad yesterday was? As I said earlier, 0.6 of a second slower than last year they were at this track, which I cannot even believe that, but that is the truth. That is how slow they were yesterday. They were the 8th best team in qualifying. How would you sum up Ferrari right now?
Aura doesn't bring you speed on a racetrack. Despite what F1 Twitter might think. I mean, I don't think it's that surprising considering Friday, where they were just complaining about them having no brakes, all of FP1, all of FP2, and as teams around them improved their car instead, they were able to improve nothing. So yeah, just a disastrous qualifying a weekend for Ferrari. I mean, I saw tweets saying that they were leaving the grandstands after the end of Q2,
Yeah.
and that's not really surprising to see Ferrari, you know, that far down.
Yeah, it's just I hope for their sake and for the fans' sake that yesterday is the worst it will get this season. But I can see it getting worse. I think next week in Monaco, for example, I think it's possible they could not make Q3 even there, because this car is just absolutely terrible. The thing is, though, is they were still decently quick in the first 5 races. Even in, coming out of the Saudi Arabian race, they finished on the podium. Leclerc had a really good, great drive, and they surprisingly got a podium. It was their first podium of the season. They were starting, it felt like, to turn things around, and then since Miami, they have just been absolutely awful, and they are legitimately right now slower than Williams. Williams have a faster car than them, and another stat, by the way, which is hilarious, is that Carlos Sainz has outqualified Lewis Hamilton for 3 straight races in the Williams. So that is just, clear evidence, if anyone needed it, that Williams have a faster car. And also that Lewis Hamilton is clearly not in his, in his peak or in his prime years, because Hamilton, has been so regularly poor in qualifying. And yeah, now you've got Carlos Sainz, the guy he replaced, regularly out qualifying him. And if Carlos can start to put it together at Williams, and Williams keep up their performance, Sainz could overtake Hamilton in the championship. It's not impossible. Hamilton doesn't have an absolute ton of points. I think it's only 41 points at this point, which is not a lot after 6 races and 2 sprint races. So yeah, it could get worse, certainly. Another thing, quickly, before we get your predictions, as we've got about 15 minutes to go, the Italian national anthem is playing, obviously, at Imola. Jack Doohan, obviously, has been replaced. Franco Colapinto is in the car, obviously, already has binned it in qualifying, big time. But yeah, with Doohan, what were your thoughts on the races he did, and also your thoughts on the whole security thing that he had to go through in Miami because of all the threats he had
Oh yeah.
online? That was really awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not a surprise with that particular fan support, is it? We've seen it in IndyCar, we see it across most sports that that's what they're like. And yeah, just very unfortunate for Jack that his email got leaked, and then freaking they sending death threats to his dad and everything else. So that wasn't too good. Justice for Jack, because Colapinto has been nothing but pure arse this weekend, and doing it would actually be much closer.
Probably, yeah.
I feel like
Colapinto,
Dylan should maybe look into getting a new manager. I don't know.
yeah. um, what do you call it? Yeah, I mean, here at Imola, Colapinto has not looked. I mean, I know it's his first weekend in the car, but even in Friday practice, he looked nowhere near Gasly when Gasly was looking super quick. So far, there has not been any noticeable difference. I think Alpine. I still think they're right to try Colapinto out, but so far, Colapinto has not shown a noticeable difference compared to doing. The thing is, though, even though Colapinto, I think one thing we have to remember, even though Colapinto, this is his first weekend in the car, he has probably done a lot of work in the simulator, so it's not like he's not done anything. So yeah, this weekend has not been a great start whatsoever for him, but according to what I'd tell you, one thing that is funny is, and I think it was made on the X post they did announcing Colapinto was going to be in the
Yeah.
car. They said, "Oh, Colapinto's going to be doing the next 5 races," and then the new team boss, who should not be anywhere near the paddock, Flavio Briatore, then came out and said, "Oh, I heard somewhere that Colapinto's only in for the next 5 races," which is not true. And where that came from was his own team who announced that. So, yeah, Alpine are just a complete horror show mess. I can't believe that they're really still going to be on the grid going forward into the future. I know Renault obviously are pulling away the end of this season, but I don't think the chaos is going to end at that team going forward in the next few years. And like I said, Flavio Briatore should not be anywhere near any motorsport outfit at all. He should be banned from all motorsport events for obvious reasons. I don't think I have to say
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, we've got just over 10 more minutes. So what are you going for your podium today?
I'm gonna go Piastri in first, with Verstappen in second, Norris in third, Russell in fourth, and I'm gonna say Carlos Sainz in fifth.
Yeah, sounds plausible. As well, with the first corner, obviously Max and Oscar had a little get together in Saudi Arabia. Are you expecting fireworks at turn one, or do you think it'll be fine?
Um, I wouldn't be very surprised if Mac wants to get one back on Oscar. Quite frankly,
Yeah. Well, do you remember?
show him who's boss.
Yeah. Do you remember 2020? Was it 2021 with Hamilton, where
Yes, I
I
do.
know it was wet on that occasion, but Max, I think Lewis tried to go around the outside, and then ended up bumping across the
All the
Uh,
curbs.
yeah, so maybe we'll get something similar to that. We'll see. But yeah, like you said, Max is definitely going to be very keen to get one back and make sure that he gets into the lead, because I think he knows that if he doesn't get in the lead on the first lap, then he has a very slim chance of victory, given how good the McLaren is in race conditions. Plus, it is I think hotter today at the track. I think than it was yesterday, which helps McLaren as well. And obviously, McLaren have superior tire management, so all goes together in helping McLaren in the race. But
I can only imagine what number 4 Twitter is going through after they just saw Zach Brown standing next to Oscar Piastri there.
yeah.
Um,
Oh
oh
god,
god.
it's so ridiculous, so ridiculous. All that talk, but I mean, with Lando, surely this form, which has been since the second race, surely it can't continue for the whole season. Because
No, surely not.
you're thinking, surely, even for just say 2 or 3 races, it's going to turn around. I mean, even last year, when Lando was messing up in the races, he was still delivering to an extent in qualifying, and he was still, having some good performances here and there. But this year, again, after that first win, it's just been consistently poor. So, yeah, it's got to turn around
Yeah.
at some point.
Well, to be honest, I thought he was potentially turning around this weekend, but then he just went out and absolutely bottled Q3. So,
Yeah.
and then he's very much echoed that it's just completely his fault that he's not performing. But of course, his fan base can't take that. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And another thing with Lando is, of course, in recent years, this has been Imola one of his best tracks. I remember he was on the
yeah,
podium here a couple times when McLaren were a midfield team. So yeah, it's really just poor the form he's in at the minute. And as he said after qualifying, it's his fault. There's nothing wrong with the car whatsoever. Sophia says first corner mayhem or masterclass. Hopefully a masterclass. Rooks saying Albon's water leak fixed before pit lane close, so he'll start P7. Good. Yeah, Albon did have an issue before the race. Clearly, it was a water leak, and yeah, finished or fixed. I think about 5 minutes or so before the pit lane closed, which is all good. Also, as let me just finish up the poll quickly. As we've got a clear winner. 242 votes. I asked you guys who will win the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, and 55% have gone for Oscar Piastri, 34% for Verstappen, 6% for Norris, and 4% for Russell. I was going to quickly say, Nib, this could be, for quite a while, the last race at Imola, because this is the last year of the current contract. So, yeah, hopefully we get to come back here in the future, but it's not likely, is it? They're probably going to replace it with another street race or something, or the Madrid race, in it. It's going to be something like that.
God.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, with these cars, it's been pretty bad.
Yeah.
What was the crazy race where we had that late safety car and like Kvyat
2020.
did a madness 2020? Yeah, that's right, the COVID one. That was fantastic. But since we had these new ground effect cars, it's not been very good, has it?
No. If you add, cars that could follow like they do, but are quite a bit smaller, I think this track would be absolutely fine. But it's another track that suffers because of just how big these cars are, sadly. But yeah, if this is the last Grand Prix at Imola for a while, hopefully not as big of a gap as it was, between 2006 and 2020. But if it is the last one for a while, then yeah, farewell to what is. Even though I think Jeremy Clarkson, actually, I saw him tweet this yesterday, that even though it's not the best track to race at, it is one of the best to drive at. And the drivers, I think, absolutely would confirm that. It is a brilliant, brilliant racetrack. But we have got 5 minutes to go until lights out at Imola. So let me get into a couple bits of important information before we begin this race. Firstly, championship standings. Oscar Piastri comes into this race 16 points clear of Lando Norris. Max Verstappen third really has to win. He's 32 points off the lead coming into this race. Russell fourth also really has to win if he can, as he's nearly 40 points off the lead of the championship. Leclerc fifth, Antonelli sixth, Hamilton seventh, Albon eighth, Ocon ninth, and Lance Stroll in P10. On the constructor side, pretty much already wrapped up for McLaren at over 100 points clear of Mercedes. Red Bull in third, only 11 points clear of Ferrari. Williams in fifth can extend their gap even further today and maybe even start to close the gap to Ferrari a bit. Haas in sixth on 20 points. Aston Martin seventh on 14. Aston Martin possibly could go up to sixth today. Racing Bulls in eighth on 8 points. Ninth Alpine on 7 points. And Sauber last on 6 points. Let's go into, though, some key stats regarding the front-running teams. McLaren have not won at Imola since the year I was born. That is how long ago it's been since they won at Imola. 1998 with David Coulthard. Their best finish at Imola since 2020, the return to this circuit, is second from last year, where Lando was close to the win. And last year it was second and fourth in the race. Can they convert it to a win this time around? Red Bull, of course, have been the most successful in recent times at Imola. They won here last year, and they won the last 3 races at Imola. And last year, it was first and 8th for the Red Bull team. Ferrari's last win at Imola was in 2006 on Michael Schumacher. That is obviously going to go on, because there's no chance they'll win today. Their best finish at Imola, third from last year. And yeah, third and fifth they were a year ago. They'll be very fortunate to finish anywhere near that today. And for Mercedes, their last win at Imola was in 2020 with Lewis Hamilton, but they've only had 1 podium at Imola since then. 6th and 7th they were only last year. This year, there is a decent chance for a podium. We'll see if they can get it. But let's go through your starting grid for the 2025 edition of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. On the front row, probably the 2 biggest championship contenders, the leader, Oscar Piastri, and the world champion, Max Verstappen. On the second row, the 2 Brits, George Russell and Lando Norris. And then on the third row, the 2 Spaniards of Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz. The fourth row, Alex Albon and Lance Stroll. And then completing the top 10, the 2 Frenchmen of Isaac Hadjar and Pierre Gasly. An all Scuderia 6th row, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. 13th and 14th, the 2 F2 drivers from a year ago, Kimi Antonelli and Gabriel Bortoleto, who of course won the F2 championship last year. 15th and 16th, you've got Liam Lawson, and making his race debut for Alpine, Franco Colapinto. The penultimate row, Nico Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon. And then Oliver Behrman will be last on the grid, and starting last and from the pit lane, Yuki Tsunoda for Red Bull, who thankfully is all okay after his massive crash yesterday. So here is the order and the lap counter. I've put medium for the tyres for the moment, because I think most people will start on that compound. And Brooks is saying that everyone is on the mediums except Hamilton, Antonelli, Hülkenberg, Behrman, and Tsunoda, who are on the hard tyres. So let me just get that correct. As, yeah, it will be a 63-lap race. And the formation lap will be underway in just a moment. As they're just showing Piastri, who of course is starting on pole. And the first ever, I think, Australian to start on pole at Imola in Formula 1. And we'll see.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't think they were racing here when Alan Jones was at Williams. I think it was just after that, so I might be correct. As, yeah, F are on the mediums, except for Hamilton, Antonelli, Hülkenberg, Behrman, and Tsunoda on the hard compound tyres. As the formation lap is about to get underway, and gets underway right now. There you go. And Piastri will pull away. Should be a bit of a shorter formation lap than Miami because, of course, it's one of the shortest laps of the year. And, yeah, they're just pulling away now. Should be, hopefully, a very exciting midfield battle, at least, given how close it is. From Aston Martin up in 5th all the way down to, obviously, the Ferraris. You got Antonelli, and maybe even Tsunoda can join that fight because the Red Bull car definitely is quick enough to be in the top 10. As front of the pack just exiting the hairpin. As Piastri coming into the middle sector. If Piastri last year had not impeded another driver, he would have actually started on the front row with Max a year ago, but had to start in P5 instead. But this time around, Oscar on pole and Max is in second, as Oscar and Max is coming through the Variante Alta chicane, where famously Leclerc 3 years ago spun when racing for second.
Yeah, wow.
As Oscar now just coming into the final couple corners. And here we are, I think, on board with one of the Ferrari cars. Not quite sure who it is, but yeah, Ferrari 11th and 12th. As I said in the build-up, Ferrari actually qualified higher in 2020 at this track than they did yesterday. That's how bad yesterday was. As a record attendance at Imola of nearly 250,000 people. As Piastri now onto the grid, doing his final burnouts. And of course, pole position as the inside line. So as long as Oscar gets a good enough start, he can then hold that inside line, which is the line you want for turn 1. And unless the driver around the outside brakes ridiculously later and does a miracle, then really you should be able to maintain your position. But all comes down really to the initial launch, as we're looking at now Yuki Tsunoda, who will enter the pit lane after Oliver Behrman just passes the pit entry. So Behrman will be the last on the grid. As we're just waiting for the last, I think, 4 or 5 cars now to line up. As we're on board with Lando Norris, he needs a big race today. As they're all lined up, can Piastri take win number 5 for the season? 5 wins in a row. This is a crucial race for the championship. Max also has to win. The lights are on. It's 3, 4, 5 lights. And it's go at Imola. Brilliant start for George Russell, who immediately pulls alongside Max Verstappen. Piastri holds the inside. The 2 Ferraris are going close to each other. Piastri, though, has the lead. Verstappen goes right round the outside. Oh, what a move by Max Verstappen. He has somehow gone right round Piastri and leads at Imola. Piastri second, Russell third, Norris fourth. But that was a stunning move from Verstappen. It's the 2 Williamsons close. And here's Leclerc racing Gasly. It looks like Leclerc has passed Isaac Hadjar as Verstappen leads away. And then it's Alonso in 5th. Then the 2 Williamses. Then Stroll. And then Gasly. And then I think it's Leclerc 10th. Ahead of Hadjar. And then Antonelli is in 12th place. But wow. What a move that was by Verstappen. As Hamilton 13th. And then Bortoletto, Lawson, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Colapinto, Behrman, and Tsunoda, as we're about to begin lap 2 of 63. And Verstappen leads by, I think, nearly a second as they begin the second lap, as they all now head down to turn 1. As Ocon is pitting, so clearly damage to his car. A shame for him. But Nib, we haven't seen a replay yet, but what a move from the world champion.
Oscar's had his pants pulled down there. Great move by Max. I think Oscar was a little bit too cautious into turn 1, and he's paid the price.
Yeah.
Great move by Max.
We're just seeing a replay of it now, and I saw Max going around the outside, but I did not think for 1 second he was going to be able to do it. But yeah, like you said, he has absolutely done Oscar there and kept it within the track limits, didn't push Oscar off. Brilliant from Verstappen, and now we have a proper race on our hands. As yeah, Ocon has pitted, and he's put the hard tyre on. Clearly had some damage. We will have to see at some point a replay of what happened to him. As already very close between Alonso and the Williamses. Of course, DRS already enabled. As we begin lap 3, Verstappen about 1.5 seconds clear of Piastri, who is about 6 to 8 tenths, I think, ahead. As here is Antonelli and Hamilton. Hamilton trying to pass Antonelli, but both of them have DRS, and that's what keeps Antonelli ahead. But yeah, Russell keeping up just about with Piastri ahead. As actually Alonso still within a second of Norris, which is definitely helping him keep the Williamses behind. But yeah, Hamilton and Antonelli battling hard over 12th place. As Leclerc up in, I was going to say 10th, but he goes up the inside of Gasly, and Gasly runs wide into the gravel and bumps hard through the gravel. That's going to hurt. His downforcer might have damaged his floor. As Leclerc up to 9th, and Gasly now in 14th place. That's very costly for Gasly in this race. As we only just saw that battle very late. But I'd love to see a replay to see how Leclerc was able to get up alongside.
My bottom hurts after watching that. Poor Gasly, Jesus.
Yeah. That was a severe ride through the gravel as lap 4 of 63, and wouldn't be surprised if Gasly has damage after that one. As out front, the gap still about 1.5 seconds. As through the midfield, it is very, very close. Leclerc, though, having a brilliant race so far. Had a decent start getting past Hadjar. Now he's got past Gasly, and he's got Stroll about 0.5 seconds in front of him. So Ferrari, at least at the minute, looking a bit quicker with their race pace. But we'll see once the race settles down if they can keep that up. As we're looking at the visor cam of Lewis Hamilton. He's stuck in 12th behind Antonelli, who is young enough to be his son. That is the age difference between the two. That is Leclerc getting mighty close to the back of Stroll into the chicane. And yeah, that Ferrari definitely much quicker in these race conditions. Leclerc all over the back of Stroll as we begin lap 5. Max still 2.5 seconds clear of Piastri. Let's see here though, can Leclerc get properly the slipstream of Stroll? He is, but I don't think he's close enough to Renault take. No, nowhere near. As Gasly, thankfully, still in 14th and hasn't. He's not really losing any massive amount of lap time, so hopefully has no damage. But here is Nib, a replay of the start. I'll let you take us through it.
Yep, when it gets to me as it is now. And I mean, it looks like Verstappen was going to drop to 3rd here. I mean, Russell had a great launch, was in the slipstream of Piastri, and then he got stuck behind Piastri, had nowhere to go, and Verstappen just absolutely sends it around the outside. No idea how he's made it stay on the track. unbelievable move. And I think the top seven stayed in their all same positions, and now we're watching on board with Russell. And Russell had a fantastic start, picked up the slipstream of Piastri, as I mentioned, but he just couldn't go anywhere. Piastri defended that well, but he let Verstappen just go storming, and then Russell's complaining about Piastri. Well, and Piastri's done nothing wrong there in terms of Russell. As we're watching now, Colapinto at the Tosa hairpin. What's happened here is he's getting a Haas up the inside of him. I assume this is Ocon, where Ocon maybe got his damage. No, never mind. Colapinto's just been overtaken by two cars. That's all that was. There's now seeing a replay of Gasly just going too deep and through the gravel, and Jesus, that was some serious bumping going on there.
Yeah, he just went slightly onto the dirtier side of the track and ran out of road. And I think Russell, the reason he was angry was because Russell thought he had got past Max, and then Max just out of nowhere went right around the outside. He's that angry that Max was able to do that, and now Russell in third with Lando pressuring him. So yeah, I think Russell just couldn't quite believe what he had witnessed there. As in the midfield, it is incredibly close. We have a whole pack of cars racing incredibly closely over some very important points positions. Out front, Verstappen still a second and a half clear of Piastri. Russell starting to drop away now. Russell a couple seconds, now 2.5 seconds behind Piastri, and he's got Norris now within a second with DRS. So Russell now starting to have to look in his mirrors, which he's going to have to be doing for a long time. Interestingly, though, Fernando Alonso is hanging on to Russell and Norris, and so is everyone else behind. So Russell not very quick right now at all. As, yeah, all the way down to Hamilton in 13th have DRS behind him. So the two out front have absolutely, well, for the minute, have checked out a bit, because everyone is all racing from third till 12th place. And then, have we got any other position changes? No. That's Sonoda in the Red Bull is right behind Behrman in the fight for 18th. Of course, Sonoda started from the pit lane. As Max slightly pulling away from Oscar, but it is still very close on lap time. We're talking hundredths, if not a tenth at most, between the two. As now Alonso has dropped over a second behind Norris, so that's going to hurt him and keeping Carlos Sainz behind. And here comes Carlos Sainz down to turn one. We need to be watching Sainz because he's going to have a go at Alonso, I think. But no, he doesn't quite get close enough. Hamilton still having a look at Antonelli, but nothing doing. But yeah, Ferrari starting to really get held up here on lap 8. And remember, the pit window doesn't open for another, I think, 10 to 12 laps. So there's nothing really they can do strategically. I mean, they could do a 2-stop race, but with the pit lane loss here, you don't really want to do that. As Norris right behind Russell here, and Niv, with the pace McLaren have compared to that Mercedes, surely it's inevitable that Lando is overtaking Russell here.
Yeah, probably is very, very close to George.
Yeah. As, what is this? This is Colapinto running wide at one of the Ravazzas. Colapinto is in 17th place. And yeah, Norris looks very close through the two Ravazzas. Lap 9, Max and Oscar about level-ish on lap time. Here comes Lando, though. Closing on Russell, and it's going to be close. Into the chicane. Russell defends to the inside. Lando, though, hasn't got enough momentum, but gets a better run through the chicane and will force Russell to defend to the inside. Will Lando think about it around the outside? No, not quite. But He's forcing Russell to defend, and obviously that's going to hurt Russell's tyres. As no other position changes at the moment, but it is still very close behind Norris with the midfield. But again, Alonso, Sainz, and the Williamses, and everyone really behind, hanging on well.
Well, Norris has just allowed them to all catch up after the movie tried at the end of the first sector.
Yeah, as Russell obviously having to defend a bit on this lap, he's losing so much time now to the leaders. He's 6 seconds?
He's lost over a second this lap.
Yeah, he's about 6 seconds off the lead now after 9 laps. He's dropping a lot of time. As Max still 1.6 seconds clear of Piastri. Lando about as close this time around as he was before. Coming into turn 1, will Lando get the move done? No, he has a look, but doesn't bother. He will, though, get a better run through the chicane again, and Russell will have to move offline, I think. He does. Norris looks to the inside. Surely not. No, the cars are too wide for that, as Gasly has pitted for Alpine. So, Gasly should come out in, I think, 20th place. But yeah, this is now bringing Alonso and the midfield in, and Norris has got to get this move done. He is losing so much time. He's losing, like you say, a second a lap pretty much now to the front two. As Russell stating the obvious that Lando drove on the grass. But, yeah, this Mercedes, not very quick. Not quick at all right now. A lot slower than I expected, I have to say. I thought these two would be battling, but I didn't think it would be this hard this early. As we're on lap 11, and Lando looks even closer on this occasion as Leclerc pits. That's a very early pit stop. But Lando, is he going to go for the outside? He puts his car there, but Russell just breaks back up the inside. Lando again gets a better run through the chicane. Lando gets in the slipstream. Will he take the outside? Oh, he's going to do it. Oh, brilliant move from Lando Norris, who goes round the outside of the Villeneuve chicane. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And Norris up to third. Credit where credit is due. That was a brilliant move. So Lando up to third, but he has lost a lot of time. He's now nearly 7.5 seconds behind his teammate. And now Russell has got Alonso all over the back of him. Mercedes, not quick at all. And is a replay just coming up, Nib. And yeah, what a move by Lando.
Yeah, well, Lando likes overtaking in some unorthodox ways, and this is certainly one. Around the outside here, the Villeneuve chicane. That's some F1 game stuff there. That is great move. But as you said, he has lost a lot of time. Now he's about 8 seconds off the lead, and no surprise that they're pitting George Russell already.
Yeah, and the Williams of Sainz, who obviously he wants to be getting ahead of Alonso at least, as Russell comes in. So this is pointing towards a 2-stop race, these early pit stops, as Leclerc, as I said, he came in a lap ago, been doing, I think, a purple middle sector. Be interesting to see where Leclerc comes out in relation to Russell. Here comes Leclerc. It's going to be close, and Leclerc's got it. So Leclerc has jumped Russell. That is how quick the undercut is there.
Wow.
So yeah, Leclerc was what, probably 2 to 3 seconds behind when he pitted. So that is mega stuff, and Ferrari definitely in this race today. So Alonso up to 4th, and then it is Albon in 5th, Stroll 6th, Hadjar is 7th, Antonelli 8th, Hamilton in 9th, Bortoletto 10th, with Hulkenberg in 11th. Colapinto in 12th. Behrman 13th. Sonoda in 14th as Alonso pits from 4th. And then Leclerc 15th. Russell 16th. Of course, they've just pitted as Alonso is now on lap 13. Bortoleto also coming in. And I think Alonso is not going to be very happy when he comes out the pits because he's going to be staring at the rear wing of a Williams, probably, as he trundles out the pit lane. Verstappen, by the way, out front. 2.7 clear Piastri. What a job Max is doing at the moment. And Alonso... he's just done it. Alonso has just kept ahead of Sainz. What a brilliant effort from the Aston Martin team. They just got him out ahead by about a tenth and a half or so. As we're looking at Alonso now. And yeah, that is crucial for Fernando's race. Remember, Fernando hasn't got a point yet this season. And he's desperate for a good result today. He's not had a lot of luck at this circuit in the last few years. So, yeah. So, was it Bortoleto? It's now last. It's Oscar Piastri pits on lap 14. Front right was slow. That's a second they've lost there. So, that's great news for Max Verstappen because he can now pit and he will come out ahead. So, let's see.
Oscar was really struggling on his tyres pretty badly.
Yeah, that gap did grow quite significantly quickly. Thankfully, though, for Piastri, he's got about 6 seconds of clear air. But I'm sure Verstappen is going to pit at the end of this lap to cover that off. As Alonso, here's his pit stop. Absolutely perfect. And yeah, Alonso is now in 15th, I think it is. And Piastri is in, I think, 12th.
Did you see Alonso's brakes on fire as he's driving down the pit lane?
Oh, I didn't see that, no.
You looked away right at the wrong time. His brakes were completely on fire going down the pit lane.
Seems, where is he? He's actually been overtaken by Sainz. We haven't seen it, but Sainz on track has overtaken him. So that getting ahead or keeping ahead didn't last for long, as Lance Stroll has now pitted. As we're on lap 15, and Max Verstappen has stayed out, which is very interesting, as Lando Norris, by the way, 10.5 seconds off the lead. So Lando is going to have to do something quite incredible to get even into the fight for the win here. He is nearly half a pit stop off the lead. So Hadjar is now up to 4th place, and in a comfortable 4th, really. Antonelli 5th, Hamilton 6th, Hulkenberg 7th, Colapinto 8th, Behrman 9th, Sonoda 10th, and then Piastri 11th, Leclerc 12th. Leclerc currently has the fastest lap. And then Russell 13th, Sainz 14th, Alonso 15th, Gasly 16th, Stroll 17th, and then Lawson, Ocon, Bortoleto. We've only got 5 drivers out there on the medium compound tyre, so I will correct the tyre information in a moment. As we're now on lap 16, and Verstappen staying out there, so presumably they are going to go for a one-stop race with Max, which, I mean, Piastri is 31 seconds behind, so Piastri, I don't think, is in Max's pit window at the minute.
No, it's 28 seconds. They did just show it on the screen. I mean, Oscar did a personal best lap of a 20.9, but Verstappen did a 21.2, Norris a 21 flat. So the top 2 looking like they can probably do a one-stop.
Yeah, as Norris just took quite a bit out of Max. He's now under 10 seconds behind, as here's Lawson passing Ocon. And yeah, got that move done, as we're just looking on the onboard of Lewis Hamilton, who's still stuck behind Antonelli, as he has been for the entire Grand Prix. But yeah, this race really in nicely up in the air with, but looks of it, half the drivers on a 2-stop and half of them on a 1-stop here. As
Norris just did personal best lap of a 20.8 after complaining that he had no tyres. So as that's a good old Hamilton one, isn't it?
yeah, complain you have no tyres and then immediately do a fastest lap or personal best.
Purple.
But we're looking at, still the battle between Antonelli and Hamilton. Antonelli is on the hard tyre. Hadjar just ahead of him on the medium, but Antonelli is not really pressuring Hadjar. Hadjar is about a second or so clear. Doing a great job. Hadjar's had a really great weekend. Been in the top 10 consistently. And here is the trouble for Piastri. He's now right up behind Tsunoda, who is right behind Behrman, who is almost right behind Colapinto. And now Piastri's got to clear this traffic. If he can't, this is going to completely destroy his chances of winning this race. So we will see what he can do. But Tsunoda and Behrman definitely are not going to pit for quite a while, because they started on the hard compound tyre. And they want to be going probably another 15 to 20 laps before they pit. Piastri, though, gets a good exit from the final corner in the slipstream of Tsunoda. Tsunoda defends to the inside. Piastri, has he got enough to go around the outside? Yes, he does. Extra grip. And he gets the move done. So Piastri up to 10th. Crucial overtake. Now he needs to pass Behrman as quickly as possible. As he's 31.8 seconds, now 32 seconds behind Max, which is about, like you said, 4 seconds away from the pit window.
Well, it's about the gap of when he come out the pits. So yeah, this has been terrible. They probably should have just kept him out.
Yeah. As I tell you what, this race is absolutely working out great for is Alexander Albon, running in third, comfortably in third. He's about 4 seconds ahead of Hadjar, the next car. Obviously, Leclerc, Russell, Sainz, Alonso, Stroll, they've all pitted quite early and will have to pit again. Albon is miles clear of them and obviously won't have any traffic to contend with, doing some decent lap times, whilst Leclerc and co will have to get through this traffic. So watch out for Alex Albon as Piastri easily passes Behrman into turn 1. So yeah, watch out for Alex Albon. Might be a podium contender in this race. We do know Albon likes to run a bit longer than others into a Grand Prix. He's been doing that consistently this season, and obviously came off the back of a brilliant result in Miami, 5th place. But that's what this race is about now, is with Piastri and also Leclerc, Russell, Sainz, Alonso, Stroll, is what can they do about the traffic? Because that will decide, really, their Grand Prix. Is Leclerc now within a second of Tsunoda, but Tsunoda is within a second of Behrman. As now Piastri looks like he's about to overtake Colapinto for 8th place once they get to the pit straight. As into the Ravazzas they come. McLaren way more grip than the Alpine. And yeah, the move is completed. So Piastri up to 8th. And he's got about 2.5 seconds to the next car, being Hulkenberg in the Sauber, who obviously will not defend against Oscar. But this race really has not worked out well for our championship leader. Not only the start, but pitting as early as he did put him in a tough position if he's going to win this race, as we're looking at Tsunoda holding up Leclerc. This is the problem now for Leclerc, and then once Russell joins the party, it'll be the problem for him as well. Is Tsunoda is not going to jump out the way, nor should he. As we're on lap 21, Lewis Hamilton still stuck right behind Kimi Antonelli in the battle for 5th. And the gap out front, Verstappen, 9.5 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Max, I think you'd have to say at the moment, the clear favourite to win, given that he's on the better strategy. And Lando, who is probably on that same strategy, is nowhere near close enough to Max to really hurt him. As here comes Leclerc. And I think he will. Yes, he does. Pass Tsunoda for 11th. Crucial for the Monegasque driver. As Williams telling Carlos Alex's lap times, and Carlos says, oh, it's clearly a one stop then. And yeah, I think he's realised that the team have fucked him over. As Carlos, by the way, only about a second behind Russell. I have to say, very surprised at just how quick Williams are. I know they were quick in Miami, but they are probably, they're mixing it with probably, Mercedes and Ferrari. They're arguably the 3rd quickest team out there right now. As Albon still comfortably in 3rd, doing a great job. Having a great season. As Hamilton having a chat with his team. A lot more civil than it was 2 weeks ago. As he just said on the radio, we definitely don't want to undercut these guys.
I mean, this has been a disastrous decision to pit Piastri.
Yeah.
Unless his tyres were absolutely dead, he has lost nearly 2 seconds to Verstappen since he's pitted. And he's about to come up to more traffic with Hulkenberg right now. He's got past Hulkenberg, actually.
Yeah. Well, next up, in about 5 seconds, will be that Hamilton-Antonelli fight. And that's going to be tough.
And Max nearly has the gap to Hamilton and will to Antonelli in just in a couple of laps. So they won't have to deal with any of this traffic.
Yeah. As Russell saying, it's like the rear track rod or something is broken because the rears are moving even on a straight line. I'm struggling. Yeah, there is something absolutely wrong with that Mercedes, no doubt, because he is miles slower than he was yesterday. As this is Leclerc, I think, about to pass Behrman, potentially. Behrman does have DRS, though, from Colapinto ahead. Well, he still will, because Colapinto's pitted, but it will still get the DRS, I think. But, yeah, unless there's a safety car, Oscar is not winning this race. Absolutely no way. The McLaren have cost him that chance. As Leclerc up the inside and gets the move done. Leclerc is up now to 9th place after, Colapinto has pitted, and Colapinto will come out probably last, but on much fresher hard compound tyres. And that's a replay of when Piastri, I think, passed Hulkenberg. So there's only 4 runners now on the medium tyres, which is the top 4 who, of course, haven't pitted. Antonelli and Hamilton on the hards in 5th and 6th have not pitted. Hulkenberg in 8th has not pitted. Behrman and Tsunoda 10th and 11th also have not pitted. But yeah, I really hope we don't get a safety car because it's a very intriguing race without it. Again, with all the strategy differences. As Mercedes saying, they're looking through the data, can't see anything at the moment as to what the issue is. But yeah, Russell definitely has a fundamental issue in that car because he's struggling to keep ahead of Carlos Sainz, who's just about closing in. But Russell has got Tsunoda just ahead of him. He needs to try and overtake. As yeah, Max Verstappen is 9 seconds clear of Norris in the lead. And 21 clear of Albon. And then 28 clear of Hadjar. So he's almost cleared Isaac Hadjar as well. Probably another lap or so and he'll clear Hadjar from his pit window. So for Verstappen, this is working out absolutely perfectly. And like I said, I know still a long way to go, not even halfway through yet, but Max had to win this race and he is looking like he is on way to that. And obviously that move at the start, crucial in getting him where he is at the moment. But Oscar Piastri in 7th is less than 2 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, but is 32.5 behind Max, which is about 4.5 seconds outside of the pit window.
Yep, Oscar's finally the fastest car on track, and then Hamilton's like a second and a bit up the road. So, yeah.
I think as well, what is I don't know the exact gap, but as these laps go on, and if Oscar gets held up for a few laps behind now Antonelli and Hamilton, Lando eventually might be able to pit and come out ahead of Oscar. Because I think the gap...
I don't think so.
I think the gap is about 23 seconds, I think, between Lando and Oscar.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
So he needs, another 6 seconds, probably. As is a replay of Russell overtaking Tsunoda. But let's see what Piastri can do. He's got a faster car, faster tyres, but as we know at Imola, doesn't mean anything. Go on.
Looks like this should be reasonably comfortable. I mean, the only thing is if the DRS keeps Hamilton ahead, but Oscar looks pretty fast here.
Yeah, he's very close to Hamilton as we're on lap 26. Right in the slipstream, Hamilton has got the DRS as well. Oscar goes to the outside. Will he get the move done? Hamilton keeps his car there, but doesn't fight too hard. And Piastri, crucially for his race, gets up to 6th. And thankfully for him, Antonelli does not have DRS, so the Antonelli overtake should be a lot easier.
I mean, that's one thing you can credit Oscar with. He's been bloody decisive coming through this traffic that he's had to deal with.
Absolutely. He's actually done a lot better than I expected. I thought it'd be a lot harder, but he's doing the best he can. You can't doubt that. He's been hurt by his team putting him on the wrong strategy, and he's doing the best he can here to make up for it.
Because it looked like it was graining, and I think Lando had the same. Lando said it come back to him, so yeah, probably should have kept him out, and it probably would have come back to him.
Yeah, shame that McLaren jumped the gun. As Leclerc about to overtake Hulkenberg. As Piastri about to overtake Antonelli, who isn't really defending super hard. And there you go, Piastri up to 5th. And Isaac Hadjar about 2.5 up the road. So in the next lap or so, Oscar should have another move done and should be up to P4. But the driver I'm really looking at right now is Alex Albon, because I'm curious to see. As Albon saying on the radio, guys, come on, let's not be stupid. And the response is, okay, mate, you're doing a great job. You're pulling away from Hadjar. But if Albon was to pit now, he would come out right in the mix of those cars that pitted 15 laps ago or so.
Correct.
So, but he would obviously be on much fresher tyres and would have a lot of pace. But yeah, so yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Albon's race. But he's in a good, I think, position with his pace for later on, because he's in a fast car. I'm going to be on a good, healthy, fresh tyres, but might still have quite a bit of traffic to contend with as Piastri now passes Hadjar for fourth. Hadjar also doing a great job, but Piastri...
Now he's actually got a bit of clean air until he gets up to Albon, if Albon doesn't pit already.
Yeah, hopefully he can utilise this well to close the gap to Max, as there is Daniel Kvyat in the Williams garage, I think it is. Not quite sure what Daniel is up to these days. Is he in WEC still? I don't know. But I think he is still racing.
I don't even know. I just know that he's mates with Medvedev, and that's it.
As Lando now boxing on lap 29. And Lando will come out, I think, in between Hamilton and Leclerc here if this pit stop goes well. And it does.
Yeah.
So, in terms of third place, I think Lando is absolutely fine here for the race. So he will come out.
3.1 second pit stop. That'd be nice.
That's all. Yellow flag for something as Norris comes out. Oh, it's a Haas. That is, Ocon has stopped, and that's going to be a virtual safety car.
Well, that's certainly the win sealed for Verstappen.
And there you go, virtual safety car. And tell you who this is great news for, Alexander Albon. And this could put Albon into, fourth place, potentially, once it all shakes out, as Max now pits. And yeah, Verstappen will come out in the lead by a country mile. Brilliant pit stop as Red Bull continue in the lead. And yeah, Albon. Yeah, Albon's going to be in a very good position here. I assume Hadjar, Antonelli, and Hamilton are also going to pit. And if they do, then yeah, Albon should come out in fourth place. And here he comes. And yeah, Hadjar, Antonelli, and Hamilton pit as well, which is only great news for Albon. And the pit stop is done. And Albon, I think, bit lucky, but I think he's made his own luck there, to be honest, by doing such great lap times and being so consistent. As also Leclerc pits, Hulkenberg, Behrman, Russell, Tsunoda, Sainz all pit as well. Alonso has stayed out and come out in 8th place. So Alonso is now 8th. So let me just... So Piastri is 2nd. Lando Norris is 3rd. Albon 4th. Hadjar 5th. Antonelli 6th. Hamilton 7th. Alonso 8th. Stroll 9th. Aston Martin did not pit under that virtual safety car. Leclerc 10th. Hulkenberg 11th, Russell 12th, Behrman 13th, Tsunoda 14th, Sainz 15th, Colapinto 16th, Gasly 17th, Lawson 18th, Bortoletto 19th, and Ocon is out of this race. So let me just do that. In terms of who's on what tyre, I think everyone is on the hard tyre now.
I definitely saw one of the Mercedes on mediums.
Probably be Russell. Oh no, it'd be Antonelli. And Hamilton, yeah. It'll be those two.
Yeah, because they started on the hards, of course, and they're going to pit Piastri. I think that's probably the right move, quite frankly, even though he's now going to lose out to Norris.
Yeah, he's probably going to have to pit again. So, and he also loses position to Albon. So Albon now up to third, but I would be surprised if Albon holds on. And yeah, Piastri will come out right ahead of that Hadjar Antonelli as the VSC ends. And we are back under green flag racing. And here is Leclerc all over the back of Stroll. Can he get the move done? No, he can't. Stroll holds him back. So, Max Verstappen leads by 22 seconds over Lando Norris. Albon third for Williams. What a race he's having. Piastri fourth. As Leclerc dies up the inside of the hairpin, but doesn't get the move done. Piastri fourth. Hadjar fifth. Antonelli sixth. Hamilton seventh. Alonso eighth. Stroll ninth. Leclerc 10th. What a mixed up top 10 we have, and this race sure ain't over. As Ocon, had some sort of issue through the hairpin. Not quite sure what it was, but he is out of this race. Wasn't doing anything anyway. Had damage on the first lap, so his race was over anyway. As Antonelli and Hamilton are on the mediums. Here's a replay of Russell when he pitted. And yeah, just a replay of when he pitted. Oh, and well, that's why they should have replay maybe. Because, although that was maybe Antonelli. As he had a close rejoin with Lewis Hamilton. As here is Antonelli on the back of Hadjar. See Antonelli on the softer tyres. For Hadjar, he just got to keep ahead, and then eventually, hopefully for him, Antonelli's tyres will start to drop off as Behrman has pitted again. So there might be an issue with that car. As Piastri is on the medium compound tyre. Let me just correct that. Piastri is about 7 seconds behind Albon, and Piastri 14 seconds almost behind teammate Norris. So I would be amazed if Oscar finishes second. He should finish in third. Oh no, they've corrected it now. He's on the hard. Oscar should finish in third. That McLaren is obviously quicker than the Williams, but take something special to catch Lando.
My head will be on fucking Mars if he doesn't get past Albon. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, as Lando just does the fastest lap, even though he's miles behind Verstappen. As Leclerc has passed Stroll somewhere. As Russell down the inside of Hulkenberg, who Hulkenberg also pitted under that VSC. He's on the mediums, but Russell has overtook him. So let me just update that Hulkenberg is on a set of medium compound tyres. And don't know if we have any other medium runners through the field. But yeah, Behrman is now... also Tsunoda's on the mediums. Behrman is now last. And here's a replay of Sainz passing Tsunoda. Good move, but Sainz has really been hurt by... that got very close. Tsunoda pushing him a slight bit wide. Into turn 1. Let's see so Tsunoda threw his car back up the inside and, yeah, slight contact, but thankfully Carlos kept it on the track and I don't think there'll be any damage for that. But yeah, Carlos has really been screwed over here. Put on the wrong strategy and then the virtual safety car just completed his misery.
No.
As on lap 34, Lewis Hamilton is now past Antonelli. So Hamilton up to 6th as that Tsunoda and Sainz collision has been noted. As we're now looking at Russell right behind Stroll. Leclerc has passed Alonso as well. Aston Martin not very quick. And the reason that is because obviously they didn't pit under the virtual safety car. And they're really suffering because of that now. Don't know why they decided not to pit.
I'll be back and get a drink.
Yeah, no probs. As Piastri, 5 seconds behind Albon. So he is catching at a decent rate of knots. And he will surely overtake him because we've still got, so what, 28, 29 laps to go? Something like that. But guys, as we are just halfway through the race, reminder to stick around for a few minutes after the race to give your thoughts on the Grand Prix and obviously to vote on, driver of the day and all of that stuff. Also, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. There's Lance Stroll, this is. Is it? No, it's George Russell. The two cars look quite similar, the Aston Martin and the Mercedes, but Russell is now past Stroll. Yeah, make sure to subscribe for more content like this because we do so many, obviously, qualifying and race watch-alongs and F1 content in general. So make sure to subscribe for more content like this. And as well, smash that like button. Let's try and get up to, say, 70 plus likes if we can by the end of this Grand Prix. But yeah, Russell is up to 10th. We're now looking at Lewis Hamilton right up behind Isaac Hadjar. And really, Hamilton should get this move done. He's faster. He's on fresher tyres as well. As Piastri is just in a purple middle sector somewhere. Piastri catching Albon very quickly.
Yes, thankfully, like over a second a lap.
Yeah, we probably in about 3 to 4 laps he'll be passing him. As Hamilton, will he get the move done on Hadjar? Yes, he does. Hadjar basically let him through. And Lewis Hamilton, to give the fans something to cheer about, is up to 5th place and has the fastest lap at the moment, even though points are no longer awarded for fastest lap. As Russell now up to 9th. So Hamilton up to 5th. Hadjar, though, still having a great race in 6th place. And remember, those hard tyres will last, obviously, better than the mediums. So Hadjar just needs to keep on it. As here, we're looking at Hülkenberg and Alonso fighting over 10th place. Hülkenberg, who started in, I think, 17th, now fighting for the possibility of a World Championship point. Sauber have only scored points in the first Grand Prix in Melbourne. So, can they get a point? But, yeah, Aston Martin may as well just pit both cars because they're just going to fly down the field at this point. As this is Leclerc right behind Antonelli, who's been struggling since Hamilton overtook him. And Leclerc probably will pass Antonelli at some point. As Sainz passes Stroll for 12th. Sainz is still pushing hard out there. Good to see, because there are still some points on offer for the Spaniard. Meanwhile, his teammate up in 3rd, but that won't last for long as Piastri now just 2 seconds behind. And really, what Alex Albon needs to do is keep his eye, or maybe not Albon, but Williams more so, keep their eye on Hamilton in 5th to make sure that Albon can finish in 4th. As Antonelli really suffering with, I don't know, maybe he's overheated his tyres too much on the restart, or I don't know, but he's not had a lot of pace after trying to overtake Hadjar. As here comes Leclerc, DRS, and gets the move done. Leclerc up to 7th and Ferrari a lot quicker, thankfully, today. Good to see. So, Leclerc in 7th on the hard tyre as Mercedes' day gets even worse. 8th and 9th, Mercedes are, with about 25 laps to go. The only positive is I think Antonelli is closing on Hadjar, but not by as much as Mercedes probably would hope. But Mercedes were thinking possibly of a podium today, and they are only going to get a few points, which is, yeah, disaster for them. But here is Albon. About to begin lap 39 for him, and Piastri just about creeping within a second. So yeah, on the next lap, it should fall away, sadly, for Albon, the podium position. But we'll say, if Williams keep up their pace this season, if Albon keeps up his performance level, I think a podium is possible. Because this Williams is good, and he is performing at a very high level. As into the hairpin they come. Piastri just closing the gap even further. Here is Nico Hülkenberg, and he does it. Hülkenberg up to 10th in the Sauber. What a drive from him. I'd still be shocked if he scores points, but credit to him.
Better say, am I seeing things? What's this thing doing up this high?
We barely even see it during a race weekend, that car. Never mind in the position it's in. As what's this? Tsunoda passing Stroll. So Tsunoda up to 13th. Tsunoda has not really had any pace since the restart, even though he's on the medium compound tyres. Here's Piastri, though, on lap 40, gets the move done, and Oscar is up to 3rd place, and that's probably as far as he's going to get. He's about 12.5 seconds behind Norris.
Oh, I don't know.
As Leclerc, we're now looking at behind Hadjar. What is impressive here about Leclerc is he's not that far behind Lewis Hamilton, who is on the same tyre life, but on a softer tyre. So Leclerc is very quick. By the way, apologies that I missed lap 40, so we're going to have to just switch straight to lap 41. But yeah, Leclerc, very, very quick. And yes, Tsunoda in 13th. As good news for Alex Albon is, I think, given his current pace, he will probably hang on to 4th place because Hamilton is not really closing him. And even if Leclerc was to get up to 5th, I don't think Leclerc would have enough pace in time to get to. Albon is here. Leclerc overtakes Hadjar. Leclerc up to 6th place. Great. Go on.
Sorry. I want a rule change. I want fastest lap point back.
As Piastri. Oh, yeah, he's just took the fastest.
Yeah, Piastri did the fastest lap. Yeah, that's why.
As what's this? Sonoda on Alonso, and Sonoda should get this done in a moment. I mean, I know it's not the end of the race, but the top 3 is going to remain the same.
Yeah.
In terms of this race, though, obviously Oscar, didn't handle the first corner well, but in terms of the result, it's pretty much mostly down to McLaren, you'd have to say, because Oscar should be really finishing at worst in 2nd place. But 3rd, it's not the end of the world, is it? 3rd. I mean, he's still quite far ahead, decently ahead of Verstappen, and it's only 3 points he's losing to Norris at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not the end of the world if you're an Oscar Piastri fan. As that is Carlos Sainz passing Hulkenberg. So Hulkenberg's time in the top 10 did not last long. As Sainz up to 10th, Tsunoda up to 12th, as Alonso's now 13th. 5th and 8th, they were on the grid. Aston Martin are now 13th and 14th with 20 laps to go.
Just quietly, Leclerc is going to be on the back of Hamilton very, very quickly here.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Ferrari, how they handle this, because, Leclerc is about 2.5 behind and has been quicker these last few laps as Verstappen in the lead. 18.2 seconds clear. Obviously, a lot of that gap is because of the virtual safety car, but after Piastri pitted, really, it's not been in doubt for Verstappen. As Alonso says, yeah, it's going to be torture. It's a wreck. I'm the unluckiest in the fucking world. Says Fernando. Saying what we've all known for about 15 years. That he has just zero luck. But, what is it? Colapinto has been told to swap positions. As Verstappen on lap 44. And if Max was to win this race, then he'll only be, and obviously Piastri finishing 30 is a bigger bonus for Max, because Max will only be about 2 points behind, which, given McLaren are still quicker than Red Bull, that is pretty healthy deficit after 7 races. As
Jeez.
Is a replay of Colapinto letting Gasly through. And Gasly has the 2 Aston Martins not that far ahead of him, so he'll probably finish in 13th, Will Gasly, which is disappointing given that he was running decently well in the first few laps. As here is Leclerc trying to catch Hamilton. This battle does work in Leclerc's favour because he's on the harder tyre, and that harder tyre will get better as these last 18 laps or so progresses. But it's all about, can they catch Alexander Albon? They are catching Albon, but can they catch him and pass him before the end? If they keep up this current level of pace, then maybe, but we'll have to see. as they continue on. But yeah, one thing I was going to say is, if Max wins this race, that'll be his 4th consecutive win at Imola, which is a remarkable feat because he hasn't always necessarily had the best car to be able to accomplish that. So, to win 4 races in a row at Imola is a very special accomplishment. And I'm not sure if anyone else has done that. I don't even think Michael Schumacher has or managed back in the day to do that. So would be brilliant, as Antonelli has stopped, has he? He's slowed right down and has got an issue with his car. And the young Italian, who's had a bad weekend, pulls to a stop. And Mercedes' day gets even worse. So, Antonelli out. That will be a virtual safety car because he's parked exactly where Ocon was. So, safety car. A full safety car. That seems a bit extreme. But yeah, a full safety car. That is surprising to me because I don't see why they need a full safety car for that. Yeah, into the hairpin, clearly something went wrong with Antonelli's car.
Yeah, I think it's because he's parked on the other side to where the barriers open up, and he's parked too far from that first one. So he should have stopped at that first orange one if he's gone up too far.
Maybe. But Max has pitted for a fresh set of hard tyres. On lap 47, we have a safety car, which this is great news for drivers like Russell and Sainz, who have been screwed over a bit because of safety cars and virtual safety cars. And obviously for Oscar Piastri and McLaren in general, this is fantastic news because it means they can still have a crack at winning this race. As McLaren decide to keep Piastri out. Don't quite understand that. And Albon stays out as well.
What are these cunts doing?
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. Why on earth have they kept Oscar out unless they've just completely forgot about where he was? And for some reason, Williams have kept Alex Albon out. So yeah, I don't. Everyone, if you've got a set of tires left that hasn't got any more than a couple laps on it, really you should be pitting. So yeah, that is a baffling decision by McLaren and Williams, and even Ferrari to an extent with Leclerc. So Piastri is in second as Antonelli walks away. Piastri second, Norris third, Albon fourth, Leclerc fifth.
Yes.
Russell in sixth, Hamilton seventh, Sainz eighth, Hadjar ninth. Hadjar is pitted. Hulkenberg 10th, Tsunoda 11th, Gasly 12th. Lawson has stayed out because he's up to 13th, and then it's Alonso, Stroll, Colapinto, Bortoletto, and Behrman. And yeah, Antonelli and Ocon are your retirements. But yeah, they have decided to keep Oscar Piastri out, which makes absolutely zero sense. Because even if they're trying to be fair to Oscar and let him back into second where really he deserves to be, he's then going to hold up Lando on fresh tyres, and McLaren then won't be able to have a go at Max. So they fucked up both drivers with that decision.
Quickly looking, it doesn't look like Oscar has any tyres left. So that's why.
Right, well, if that's the case, then there's nothing they can do about that. But I will be interested to see on the restart, what are they going to do with Oscar and Lando? Because, I mean, even if Oscar lets Lando through, I don't think Lando is going to pass Max. I just don't think that's going to happen. But if they want to have a chance, if they want to at least have a go, then really they need to tell Oscar to let Lando through to at least have a go. But why would Oscar let Lando through? There's no reason to for his drivers' championship. As here is Lando Norris. And not the quickest pit stop. That's the issue, though, Nib. Well, obviously, Oscar, pretty much being on a two-stop race is that when this situation's come around, he doesn't have any tyres left. So it all comes down back to the strategy at the end of the day. That being the reason why his race has been fucked up.
Yep, to the fuck up at the start. And should Albon be ahead of Norris there?
Looked like Lando
very
was
close it's very close.
Yeah, it was. There surely is a better angle than.
But Albon pitted anyway.
Yeah, I think Lando was slightly ahead from what I saw of that angle, but yeah. But yeah, Albon, as you said, he has pitted. He is in 5th place. Leclerc, in 4th, has not pitted. So, yeah. So for Williams, they could still finish 4th here. But will they have enough pace to overtake Leclerc? Well, we will have to see. But everyone is on a set of hard tyres except Hulkenberg and Tsunoda on the mediums. I don't think they pitted, though, under the safety car. Well, I'm not sure if they did. Alonso and Stroll did pit under the safety car. They're both on mediums, and Bortoletto is on the mediums as well. So let me just update that. So everyone in the top 9 is on the hard. And then Hulkenberg and Tsunoda on the medium. Oh no, I've done the wrong driver. There you go. As Leclerc's saying on the radio, I'm looking at if we can finish in the points or not. I'm not being pessimistic. These tyres are going to be incredibly difficult to restart. I think he is being incredibly pessimistic. I don't think he's going to drop that far down the order, but it's going to be a bit hard for Leclerc to finish in 4th, no doubt. As we are now on lap 50, still behind the safety car. Hopefully should be underway at the end of this lap or so. And then, yeah, Alonso and Stroll on the medium. So watch out for Aston Martin. They do have good pace. The reason they were falling through the field is because earlier they didn't pit under the virtual safety car when they really should have. And then Bortoletto is on the medium as well. So we've got 13 laps or so to go. Still under a safety car. We're going to be under a safety car for the rest of this lap. But still, it is likely that Max Verstappen is still going to hang on and win this race. But think what is most interesting is what will happen with Piastri and Norris. Piastri has 15 lap older tyres than Lando. McLaren will want probably Oscar to let Lando through to have a go at Max, but obviously for the championship, that Oscar has no reason to let Lando through. So we'll see what happens there. And then the fight for fourth place. Leclerc has done 20 laps on his tyres. Albon has just pitted, though. So we could have a good fight for fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, because Russell also did not pit under that safety car. Lewis Hamilton did. So this is going to be a very interesting few laps or so of this Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. As I said earlier, make sure guys stick around until after the stream so you guys can vote on our driver of the day vote. But hopefully we're back underway at the end of this lap as the tractor now driving away because Antonelli's car, I think they've just about recovered it. As here's a slow-mo looking at Piastri's tyres, which, yeah, a lot of that is a load of dirt and marbles, but they don't look fantastic. But we'll see how he gets on against his teammate.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have heard it, but Norris asked in the most polite, delicate way I've ever heard in my life for him to be let past by Oscar, which, I mean, quite frankly, they should. But it was just quite funny to hear him be very nice about it.
From, as you said, from a team perspective, yeah, that's what should happen. But I think Oscar has every right to not let him through. But we'll see. We'll see how Oscar wants to play it. As a safety car will stay out for the rest of this lap. And hopefully we'll come in at the end of... Well, it's not going to come in at the end of the next lap because we've still got lapped traffic behind the safety car. Behrman is the only lapped car, so they'll have to let him through. As we're about to begin lap 52. So we should have, say, 9 to 10 laps of racing. Of course, the DRS will be enabled after one lap of green flag racing. But as it stands, Piastri in second. Piastri would only lose 7 points to Max. Piastri would still pull away in the championship because Lando is obviously up in third. So, yeah. As Behrman, car 87, overtakes the safety car. So, it will probably be the end of the next lap. Lap 53 will be the final lap behind the safety car. As we're on board Isaac Hadjar. Still having a great race, Hadjar. He pitted behind the safety car. Just ahead of him, Carlos Sainz did not pit. So Hadjar might be able to grab 8th, maybe even 7th, because Russell also did not pit. So watch out for Hadjar on this restart. Might be able to get a good few points. And complete what has been a very good weekend from the rookie, who's been so, I think, impressive this year. As we're looking just there at Sonoda, who's in 11th place. Sonoda, not quite sure if he pitted under that safety car, but he's in 11th place. And possibility of a points finish, but I'm not quite sure if he will grab a point. As we come through to start lap 53, and hopefully this lap 53 will be the final lap of behind the safety car. But yeah, plenty of battles to watch out for. Obviously, the top 3, and then the battle for the rest of the points. This race absolutely is not done and dusted just yet, so do not go anywhere. As there you go, confirmation. Safety car in at the end of this lap.
Finally. 8 laps.
Yeah, ridiculous. I was still a bit surprised, even though he was a bit far away from the gap of the wall. I was still a bit surprised that we even had a safety car. But there you go. At least it's given us something for these final few laps. Zach Brown and Andrea Stella talking on the pit wall. Obviously, this is the great thing for Red Bull with Max, is there is never a concern as to letting drivers through, because Max is number 1, which in a championship battle, it definitely does help if you've got a clear number 1 compared to a team with 2 equal drivers. As they come into the Variante outer chicane, and the safety car turns its lights off and heads for the pit lane. Max now becomes safety car. Remember, no overtaking to the start-finish line, which is actually quite early on in the pit straight. And remember, it is a long run to turn 1. So Max has got to get this right. And if I'm Max, I would actually go for it before the final corner, because I'm sure he'll know Piastri is on 15 lap older tyres. And he does. Through the middle of the first Ravazza, Max sets off. And he goes for it. And he's got about a 7/10 of a second gap as we begin lap 54 with back racing for these final 10 laps. As Lando Norris under slight pressure from Charles Leclerc behind, who thinks about sending it but doesn't quite. Looks like everyone has got away in formation, so no position changes through the field. As we're looking at Albon right behind Charles Leclerc. Can Albon overtake Leclerc? Albon on much fresher tyres and getting a great exit, Albon. And will he be able to pass Leclerc out at the corner where Kvyat passed Leclerc a few years ago? No, not quite, as Hamilton trying to pass his ex-teammate Russell. As Tsunoda passes Hülkenberg for 10th. And Russell really struggling to keep Hamilton behind. As Verstappen 1.3 clear of Piastri. And the gap is increasing. So Max is all good out front. But DRS will be enabled after this first green flag lap. As we're on lap 55. And they won't get DRS down the pit straight because you actually get DRS before the finish line. So they'll have to wait to the next lap. Or the very end of this lap. So Norris and Albon noted for a safety car infringement. That does not sound good whatsoever for those two drivers. As here is Tsunoda passing Hülkenberg up to, I think, Tosa, and Hülkenberg went deep and Tsunoda took the position. Yeah, I'm not sure if that safety car infringement has anything to do, well, probably to do with the Delta, if anything. So,
Chaz, it will be to do with the with Albon and Norris when they come out. When Norris came out of the pits.
Right. Well,
that's why it's been noted.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens with that. It looked like Lando was ahead, just about, and no further investigation, thankfully, for those.
Yeah, there we go.
to, as on lap 56, Lando has DRS on Oscar, but Oscar is not moving anywhere as Albon is putting pressure on Leclerc, but again, not close enough just yet. But I think Lewis Hamilton is very close behind Russell, but I don't think was able to get the move done into turn 1. But no, he's very, very close as Max does the fastest lap of 1:18.2, which is a very, very quick lap time. He's nearly 3 seconds clear of Piastri now, and he has checked out front as Albon just in a purple first sector as Hamilton up to, I think, Tosa tried to have a go around the outside of Russell, but Russell keeps him at bay. Surely it's a matter of time until Hamilton overtakes Russell. Russell is all over the place as Norris trying to catch and pass his teammate.
Well, at this stage, I don't think there's going to be any team orders when Verstappen's 3 seconds up the road.
Yeah, and I was about to say, actually, if I'm Oscar, there is no chance I'm letting Lando through. I don't care what type of heat he gets with the team after the race. So be it. Drivers' Championship matters more as Hamilton gets the move done. So Lewis Hamilton is up to 6th. 4th and 6th for Ferrari. That'd be a great recovery if they could finish there. But Albon is still right on the back of Leclerc, about half a second or so behind. As Alonso has passed Lawson for 13th. As Piastri losing even further time to Max. Losing, by the looks of it, about a second a lap to Verstappen.
Yeah, it's about 7 tenths.
So, yeah, it is over, the fight for the win. It's just a matter of who will finish 2nd and 3rd. As Max begins lap 58, Norris gets a good exit from the final corner. And I think might be able to have a go in turn 1. Here he comes. Closing. DRS Piastri covers the inside. Norris goes to the outside, and that is a fantastic move yet again today from Lando Norris, who is up to 2nd. Credit to Norris. 2nd brilliant move of the day. And now Piastri just needs to focus on finishing 3rd, which is not necessarily all sorted just yet. As Albon trying to have a go at Leclerc, but Leclerc defending hard. Albon has got to get past Leclerc. These are crucial points for Williams. They've got Carlos Sainz up in 8th. Carlos, though, within a second of Russell, so Sainz might be able to take 7th here. As is a replay. Brilliant move there from Norris. Piastri tried his best, but Lando, I think, just had the momentum on the fresher tyres.
Yeah. Norris was much closer out of the last Ravazza and was able to pull alongside and get it done. Thought for a moment there as Oscar went along the curve that he was going to go into the side of Norris, but managed to avoid it. And yeah, now it's just about making sure he can keep P3 here as Verstappen is absolutely flying out in front.
Yeah, he's just dipped into the 117th as Albon hunting after a gap to try and pass Leclerc. Leclerc defending well, but Albon, I'm not sure if Leclerc is going to be able to keep Albon back for the rest of this race. There is only about 5 laps to go, but that Williams is very quick. And Leclerc's on about 20 lap older tyres. Lewis Hamilton is now closed right up behind this battle. And obviously Hamilton did pit under the safety car as Alonso is absolutely flying. He's up to 11th place and might end up finishing in the points here. as through the Ravazas on lap 60, we are now. Albon, he's close. He's going to have a real good go here at Leclerc. And Leclerc forced to defend to the inside. Albon moves to the outside. And no, Leclerc moves to the... and pushes, I think, possibly Albon off the track. And Hamilton ends up going round the outside of Albon down to the buildup chicane. And Hamilton gets the move done. But
Jesus.
I'm not sure if Leclerc did push him off, but yeah, that's something that's, I'm sure, going to be looked at. But I think Albon may have just lost his chance at finishing in 4th. As Alonso, is about to pass Tsunoda in a moment, so we'll have a look at that. So Albon round the outside, Leclerc dived back up the inside, and Albon saying that wasn't fair.
Albon is ahead, and Leclerc's pushed him. Leclerc could be getting a penalty based off these guidelines because Albon is ahead going into the corner.
I think he's going to get a penalty for that. He didn't give him the space.
Yeah, I think that's a penalty.
And that's going to hurt Leclerc because he's now about to be passed by his teammate, Lewis Hamilton, who moves to the outside and takes the position, and Lewis Hamilton up to 4th. And yeah, it's under investigation, I think, now, that little incident. Yeah. And yeah, Leclerc has to get a penalty for that. It should be a 5-second penalty. Albon might still pass Leclerc on track. But yeah, I think that's a penalty, as Leclerc really struggling with his tyres. Albon's going to have another go up to this corner, but no, not close enough. But yeah, Albon, he'll be so disappointed, Albon, with that, because if he had got past Leclerc at that moment, he probably could have held off Hamilton and then finished 4th. But that's the way it is. As here comes Albon again. And he's all over the back of Leclerc through the Ravazas. I don't think Leclerc is going to be able to defend this time, because Albon so close out of the final couple corners. DRS open on lap 62. Leclerc defends to the inside, but no, he just doesn't gain enough. Does Albon? The Williams, not quite the rocket ship down the straights it used to be. As up to the Villeneuve chicane. No, not able to get the move done, but he gets a decent exit. Will he send it at the hairpin? No. He's more focused on just getting a better exit from the hairpin, and he gets an absolutely thunderous exit, but I think Leclerc saw it coming and covered it off. But
Leclerc absolutely parked it on the apex.
yeah, he has just thrown away his race at this point purely to keep this position. And I'm not sure it's going to help his result, because I think if he does get a 5-second penalty, he's going to drop to probably 9th place in the end. But and Leclerc has been told to give back the position. Let's see if he does. I think Albon might actually get the move done on this occasion anyway. As on the final lap, can Albon get up to 5th? And Leclerc this time lets him go. Alex Albon will at least finish in the top 5 yet again. But Nib, quickly, a word for our race winner Max Verstappen. What a move at the start on, and what an important victory.
Mighty display by Verstappen today, back to his absolute best, and Red Bull have certainly made some improvements this weekend, and unbelievable overtake at turn 1, and since then he's absolutely controlled things. And yep, quite comfortably, my driver of the day as well.
Yeah, easily the driver of the day.
I th-
Max Verstappen, go on.
I'd said even ahead of Albon. Albon's very close second.
Yeah, Albon's had an absolutely brilliant race for Williams, but yet again, for the fourth time in a row at Imola, it is Max Verstappen who wins the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix and takes his second win of 2025. There is just no keeping him down. Lando Norris, second. Oscar Piastri, third. Hamilton was catching in the end, but only fourth. A great recovery, though, from Hamilton and Ferrari. Alex Albon, fifth. Leclerc, sixth. I think Leclerc will escape a penalty after letting Albon through. So Leclerc, sixth. Russell, seventh. Sainz, eighth. Hadjar, ninth. Yuki Tsunoda from the pit lane finishes in 10th. Ahead of Alonso, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Lawson, Stroll, Colapinto, Behrman and Bortoletto. And your only retirements, Antonelli and Ocon. So there you go, guys. That is your race at Imola. It was a good race. Plenty of racing throughout the field, different strategies. And that was, I think it was as good as it was going to be today. And as I said, going into this stream, even at the very start, turn one was going to decide the race today, and it did. And Max, with an absolutely brilliant move, got into the lead and never looked back, and is now, 22 points off the lead of the championship as we head to Monte Carlo next week. But yeah, brilliant drive from Verstappen, who yet again proves why he is the best on the grid. But let me just, what do you call it? Let me just set up the driver of the day vote. We've given our opinions as to who driver of the day is. For us, clearly, it is Verstappen. But there are many great drives out there that were had today. Who is it for the race at Imola? And the options for driver of the day will be Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, who that was actually Hamilton's best race result today, excluding obviously the sprint races. So yeah, Lewis Hamilton, Alexander Albon, who I think was a bit robbed, honestly, a fourth. And I'd probably go, I'm going to put Hadjar in there, because I think he's had a really great weekend and he deserves to be mentioned. But yeah, let me know, or let us know, who is your driver of the day. But that is a definitely a turning point, wouldn't you say, Nib, in the championship battle? As you say, Red Bull, they look closer to McLaren. McLaren, I think, still the most superior, but things definitely looking closer, and Max now starting to get into his the peak of his season, I would say, at this point. So yeah, how championship wise, how would you say it's looking now going into Monaco?
It's Max Verstappen versus Oscar Piastri for the championship.
Absolutely, yeah.
Pole position, even more important in Monaco. So hopefully Oscar can do the job for my sake next weekend.
Yeah, cannot wait to see who gets pole in Monaco. Obviously, Piastri was very close there last year. But yeah, it's gonna be very exciting, because you're gonna have obviously the McLaren drivers, Max. I think Russell will be very close. One team as well to keep an eye on in Monaco is Williams. I think Williams are going to be very strong. Not pole position strong, but wouldn't be shocked if they have a car in the top, say, 5, 6 on the grid. So, yeah, it's going to be a very exciting qualifying next week in Monaco. And as Nib said, if you get pole, then basically the race win. And even though next week's race is a mandatory 2-stop race, it won't make a difference. Trust me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So McLaren still have a chance to fuck it up like everyone else does. But I think the teams are going to be too terrified of trying anything remotely interesting on strategy. So I think they're all just going to follow suit, to be honest, to make sure they don't lose their entire race. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But as I said earlier, I will only be doing a qualifying watch along next week because the race is going to be absolutely dreadful. And I've checked the forecast, and it's going to be a hot, sunny, dry weekend. So it's all down to qualifying next week in Monaco, and really the next Grand Prix after that in Spain. It is down to qualifying. So we'll see how it goes. Let me just read out a couple comments before we head off. KH says Williams did great and Hadjar too. Absolutely. Astro says poor Alonso 11th, Hulk 12th, both robbed, but not as robbed as Oscar. Looney Classic says we have to see how Red Bull do at other tracks before we say they're close to McLaren. Maybe.
We'll see come Spain, won't we?
Yeah, that'll definitely give us...
when the TD comes in.
Yeah, that'll give us the best indication as to like where they're at. But as I said, even at the Spanish Grand Prix, qualifying is really what matters there. And in qualifying, no doubt Red Bull are closer to McLaren in qualifying than they are in the race. So at the minute, that's really what matters for Max, is just making sure he consistently is at least on the front row of the grid, and then he can, try and do whatever from there. But even though he's won today, that does not mean that Max is, going to go on an absolute tear and start winning loads of races, because I still think McLaren, when all, in clear air, when all things are equal, I still think McLaren have the best car, but it is getting closer between McLaren and Red Bull. And I'd say next week in Monaco, I think McLaren, given the layout of the track, I think McLaren are definitely the favourites for pole and victory. This track definitely suits Red Bull more. I would say more than McLaren, but Red Bull were always going to be stronger here than they are at Monaco. So, yeah, we'll see where Verstappen ends up. I think really, as long as Max is in the on the podium next week, I think he'll be fine with that. Given that last year, I think he was like 6th or something like that in Monaco. Rooks says Norris sounded pretty subdued on his radio. As he should be, because, I mean, to be fair, Lando didn't do anything wrong today. He got the best result he could have, and, he's closed in on Piastri, but he, that's another race he's failed to win. And he is looking a lot less likely than Piastri and Verstappen to win this championship. And as Nib said, this championship is Verstappen versus Piastri. Russell, I think, has dropped a bit too far behind now, and I just don't think the Mercedes is good enough. I think, at the minute to keep up, unless they bring like a big upgrade that just transforms their season. I don't think they can really even win races at the minute. So it is Max versus Oscar. And unless Lando can massively turn around his form, that's how it's going to be. As Max is only 9 points behind Lando in the championship. So, yeah. Todd says Max going to need pole next race to tighten up this points race. Absolutely. Again, though, I think even if Oscar wins in Monaco, if Max finishes third, I don't think Max is going to be that bothered because I think he knows that Red Bull are not going to be as competitive in Monaco. But Max, because he is so good, he will still be right there in the fight for the pole and the top three. It's going to be very, very close. But let me find one final comment. As Astro asking, Williams best of the rest? Pretty much in the minute. As even though Albon only got 5th, Sainz was in 8th. So that's 14 points for Williams. And a fantastic result for them, as I think Williams are pretty clearly going to finish 5th in the championship. But, Nib, cheers for coming on. Obviously disappointed that your man wasn't able to get it done. But yeah, a good race, and cheers for coming on and contributing to the stream.
Of course, yeah, disappointing result for Piastri, but I mean, when Max is performing like that, it is a joy to watch. One of the all-time greats, just delivering like that is great to see. So yeah, still did. And as you said, that's probably the best that we could probably hope for in terms of this race. So can't complain too much, quite frankly. But yep, thanks for having me on. Great to see the usual people in the chat. And yeah, we'll see. I assume for the Spanish Grand Prix, are we doing a race stream for the Spanish Grand Prix?
Probably not. Depends on the weather, though. We'll see.
All right. Well, if not, then it'll be Canada if I can be bothered being on at 4 a.m. or whenever the race will start my time.
Yeah, but yeah, cheers for coming on today. And yeah, as I said, it was what we got today was the best we could have got. A really good, competitive Grand Prix, and we have to say, in 2025, it is incredibly close throughout the field. It's obviously the regulations staying stable for so long has really helped it be so competitive. But yeah, cheers for Nib coming on, and as well, cheers for you guys as well coming along for the 2 streams this weekend. Thanks for the support, and as well, if you are a new subscriber lately, then yeah, thank you very much. And as well, make sure to check out my video that I uploaded a few days ago about why Oscar Piastri is McLaren's best bet for the Drivers' Championship. Decent amount of views on that video and quite a bit of support, so thank you for that. And if you haven't seen it, make sure to go check it out. And as well, as I mentioned earlier, I will be uploading a podcast tomorrow reviewing this race. And then next weekend, I will be live for qualifying at 1:30 p.m. UK time. 90 minutes, that is, before qualifying gets underway for what is the main event of the Monaco Grand Prix weekend, which is qualifying. Won't be doing a race watch along, but then I will be doing a podcast the day after to review the events of that race in Monaco. So that's the plan for the next week or so. Make sure to come and check out that content. And yeah, before you go, subscribe and make sure to smash the like button as well. And also, quickly, before I head off, let me just finish up the poll in the chat, asking you guys who your driver of the day is. 78 votes for who is your driver of the day, and 66% of you have gone for Max Verstappen. 19% for Hamilton, 14% for Albon, 0% for Hadjar. Cheers for voting in that poll, guys. And yeah, make sure to come and check out that content, such as my podcast tomorrow reviewing the events of this Grand Prix weekend. And until next week's Monaco Grand Prix qualifying session, we'll be here live at 1:30 p.m. UK time. It has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.